Again, Ron to 620-622-5500.
You may have heard that Allstate has new low auto rates, but isn't it time to see for yourself? Visit allstate.com or call an agent for a quote today.
Want free Reds tickets? How about a free MLB Network Reds bag? Maybe a Reds bobblehead? Here's an idea. How about we combine them all together and give you a chance to win a free WING Reds prize pack presented by Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken. Register daily at wingam.com. Whether you're at home, at work, or in your car, tune in to ESPN 1410 Wing AM or stream us live at wingam.com. We're live. We're local. We're Dayton's ESPN radio station. Now, let's send it to the WING studios for Dayton's only local sports talk show. It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine.
You didn't think we were going to leave you today, did you? Or what? It's 3:06. We welcome you in. 3:06 here in the Miami Valley. I'm Justin Kinner. That's Kev Nash. If you're watching live on YouTube and Facebook, and you're probably thinking, man, Kev looks pretty happy today. That's a fresh cut. That's a smile on his face. They don't see enough of your pearly whites. I'm just saying. You always look so miserable to be at work.
No, never miserable. Just
working with Kinner. That's the look. To be honest, Kev's always in a great mood till 3. Like, what stupid stuff is Kinner going to say today? But I can say as much stupid stuff as I want today because Kev's like, oh, well, 3 more hours and then it's getaway day for Kev again.
Absolutely, man. You know, we talked about vacations a couple weeks ago and, you know, these type of vacations don't roll over you time off. So I'm taking advantage of my time off. So I'll be taking a couple days off as I encourage everyone to do. And when I say everyone, I'm looking directly at you and our other friend that's in the building all the time with us. You have vacation days, use them.
I try, you're like the Cincinnati Bengals of the building. You take off a lot of days. And I'm like the Cleveland Browns. I show up to work every single day. There you go.
Have fun with that.
Browns were off yesterday, so there goes that argument. But there you go. A lot to get into today. Kirk Herbstreit going to hang out with us coming up here 2 hours from now, 5:05. Nice. He will call in. We'll talk with him about his new book. He's a big Reds fan, so we'll sneak in some Reds talk. But, of course, can't wait to talk with him about the landscape of college football right now. So Herbie is going to join us coming up just under 2 hours from now. We'll get all that squared away with him. But I did want to open up with this real quick. David Shaw, he says, how you doing, Kev? I guess I'll say hi to Justin as well. So,
I'm good. So everything's good. Everything's
good.
Of
course it is. Of course it is. All right. So the very first, and by the way, everyone loves polls. The only people that love polls more than sports fans are strippers. So I'm telling you now, see, that's the first line that's making Kev like, okay, 2 more hours, 3 more hours, baby. So the polls are out. And the only people that love polls more than strippers are sports fans. And the very first college football preseason poll is officially out. And I know, this is very similar to training camp talk. When your team's doing well, training camp matters. And when training camp's not going so hot, it's only training camp. That's how we look at polls. When our team is reflected in a high positive note, polls are great. Polls are awesome. Love preseason polls, love coaches polls, love all of it, right? And then when our teams don't show up as hot in those polls, then all of a sudden it becomes a problem. Then it's just, who cares? It's just a preseason poll. How many of those preseason teams actually end up on the final poll? Yada, yada, yada. Here's the deal with that. I think both of those statements can be true. I do think polls matter. Polls matter because anything that draws a reaction out from you, it matters. It matters in some capacity. The fact that these polls come out, trust me, no one puts anything on a website. No one talks about anything on a radio show or on a television show unless it generates some kind of return. And I laugh at people all the time, Kev, when people say, oh, Kinner, he's saying that for ratings. He's just tweeting that for clicks. And my whole thing is, yeah. Can you imagine if my boss has said, Ken, I need you to talk. You find out what the people want to hear and talk about and don't talk about it. And we'll give you a raise. All right, hey, Kinner, as far as the website goes, I need you to put out the most useless content possible so that nobody clicks on it and nobody reads. Oh, okay. Aye, Captain. No, you people are morons. The people that say that, I just want to you have no idea how my blood boils when I see stupid comments like that on social. The Bengals struggling in camp. Kinner's he's just harping on it to get clicks and rate. Well, that's not not harping on it for that reason. I'm harping on it because the Bengals are the team that everyone wants to talk about around here. And I'm going to give you my opinion on the Bengals. I'm going to give you my opinion on the Buckeyes, my opinion on the Browns, my opinion on the Dayton Flyers, the Wright State Raiders, and so on and so on. The Cincinnati Reds. And of course, whenever I have an opinion that people agree with, it's, oh, this is great stuff. Kinner's awesome. Opinions that you don't agree with, Kinner sucks. Now, even if you agree with me, I probably still suck at this whole radio gig thing. But at the end of the day, polls matter. Okay, I'm not losing sleep over where my team is on the poll, and I'm not going to I'm not going to set up a parade if I like where my team is on a poll. But the bottom line is these matter. So the very first preseason college football poll is out, Kev, the coaches poll. And real quick before I get to that poll, your opinion on polls is what? Let me reset this. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that polls mean anything and everything. No one wins championships with this first poll that comes out. No one's putting up banners that say, "Oh man, we were preseason number 7 in 2021." Like I get that. That doesn't matter. But as far as media is concerned, listeners and viewers are concerned, sports fans in general are concerned, it matters. They care. And the people that say they don't care, they're the ones that care the most, Kev, because they're the ones that are actually letting a poll generate a reaction from them to the point to where they have to try to convince other people that it doesn't matter. You ever come across those people that they go to social media to bitch, just to bitch? Oh, man, this restaurant is horrible. Then don't go back and be quiet. Some people like the restaurant. Just move on. Oh, this show is horrible. I hate Kinner. He sucks. Okay, there's 100 of you that say that almost every single day. Just find a different show. There are plenty of people who like the show. There are plenty of people who tune in and keep my bosses happy.
Find another show.
So
continue to listen to the show.
True. I always tell people, I'm like, I don't need you to like me. I just need you to listen to me. Good save, Kev. Where are you going for the next 5 days? This show is going to drown without you. So with all of that being said, I think these polls matter. I don't think they matter to the point to where parades need to be held and banners need to be hung up. But people, you're wasting my time and your time and everyone's time. When you say polls don't matter, they kind of matter, because if you have an opinion on something, it matters enough to you to think about it, to generate an opinion on it, and to share it with the masses. So there you go.
All right. Polls count and matter for multiple reasons, especially in college sports. But let's tackle it from the NFL's perspective first. If they come out with their precious power rankings, especially in the NBA and NFL, they are definitely used for talking points and topics on sports shows like this one, or on the ones on ESPN and everything like that, to, rate teams and rank teams. But ultimately, those power rankings mean absolutely nothing, because as a team, you control your own destiny. In the NFL, each and every team controls their own destiny of if they're going to make the playoffs, make a deep run in the playoffs, or even win the Super Bowl. You control your own destiny. In college football, polls matter, especially preseason polls matter, because you have a baseline of where your expectations are. As a fan base, where your expectations are. As a rival team, what your expectations for your biggest rival are. Okay, so Alabama, they're coming in at preseason number 1. So their biggest rival, Auburn, is coming in at not ranked in the top 25. So they're looking at their number 1 rival as the number 1 team in the country. So if Alabama loses a game, their opening game to Miami, they can point the finger and laugh and everything like that. Or you can take a look at another team that we follow closely, UC Bearcats. Currently, they are ranked at the number 10 spot in the preseason poll. And its perception is important in college football because, yes, it's a preseason poll, but having that in your mind, it's hard to get out of your mind once the season starts. Mm-hmm. Even though this preseason AP poll doesn't count in the voters' mind, the actual people that make the college football poll, this is not supposed to count. It's hard to get this out of your mind when you go to the table and put in your vote. So the higher you are in the preseason poll in college football, especially, and if you continue to win games, you're going to be top of mind. People are going to give you that due respect if you're still undefeated when it's time to actually put in a vote for the CFP. That's why it's important in college football, because no matter how much I personally disagree with it or think that the system is flawed, this is the way it is. And a preseason poll for especially a team like UC or Coastal Carolina or Louisiana, Lafayette, or teams like that, teams from the non-Power 5, it's important to start out as high as possible and then win all your games. And then maybe you'll be invited to the big dance, which is a college football playoff. Because let's be clear, If Ole Miss, who is ranked at 25, runs the table, they're in. If UC runs the table and loses in their conference championship game, they're out. So UC has zero wiggle room. Ole Miss has wiggle room because they play in the Power 5 conference. So a preseason poll for college football is super important. And it's important for talking points. And it's important for everybody to argue about, because college football is fueled by arguments. My conference is better than yours. You guys didn't play anybody. You guys played bums at the end of the season. Well, you guys played bums at the beginning of the season. Like, that's what fuels this sport. So preseason polls are important for talking points, but more importantly, they're important about how your team is going to be viewed in the eyes of the committee later in the season.
Yeah, and first of all, you actually did professional analysis on that. You didn't have stripper jokes. You didn't do any of that stuff like I did. So now that Kev has kind of geared us back in the right direction, that's usually the points I always kind of roll to is the first poll, the preseason poll, doesn't mean anything in regards to banners being hung up. No parades are going to be thrown or anything like that. No pep rallies, no celebrations. No one's going to put out on their website or social media, we're a 5-time preseason number 4 team. Like, no one cares about that. But you brought up a lot of good points, especially when you consider the fact that, it's not where you start, it's where you finish. Well, sometimes it is where you start. I know these polls, people think they mean nothing, but they are something, because not everybody is Phil Steele that goes and analyzes all 300 plus college football programs out there, or however many college football how many college football programs are there? It doesn't matter. Besides the point, that whole
is 132.
So
maybe,
yeah. So this
something like that.
Phil Steele, College Football Magazine. He literally every conference, every team, player by player, position by position, backups, coaches, the assistant to the assistant to the assistant. I mean, Phil Steele breaks it down. Nobody else does this. And I promise you, not even the College Football Playoff Committee does this. Not even the AP voters do this. Not even the coaches do this. So to sit there and say these polls mean nothing, they kind of do. It's flawed. I'll give you that. If you want to say it's flawed, Kev, I'll definitely agree that it could be flawed. But to say they're meaningless, they matter, because at the end of the day, there has to be a starting point. When there's AP voters, when there are coaches, when there is the College Football Playoff Committee, when they all sit down, do you think that they are honestly sitting down and taking every single 100 plus college football program out there and dissecting them? No. Mm-hmm. You know what they do? They sit there and they look at this top 25 poll, whatever the rankings are at the time that, it's coming. And then they say, okay, the top 10 are here. These are clearly the front runners for who we need to be really dissecting their resumes early. And then as their resumes start to crumble, we will then bring in those other teams and start looking at it that way. So no, does it matter? It just shouldn't impact your sleep at night, helping you sleep, keeping you up at night one way or another. It shouldn't do any of that, but they do matter, because the bottom line is it's a lot harder to jump into the polls. It's a lot harder to get people's attention. It's a lot harder to move up than it is to drop down. And I think that's the thing that people have to understand. It's going to be interesting to see. But no, those are a lot of very good points. And I do think that, they do matter from that perspective, and we shall see. But the number to call in, 518-1410. 518-1410. That's the number to call in. We'll talk about this. We'll continue taking your calls, but we're going to talk about this with Kirk Herbstreit coming up just under 2 hours from now. 5:05, we will hear from Herbie. But here's the college football playoff rankings, the preseason rankings. Alabama comes in at number 1, 63 first place votes. I don't think that's a surprise to anybody. These are the teams that we're accustomed to seeing. By the way, when you look at this, and I looked at the last 4 preseason polls that have come out, 5 of the 6 teams are the same 5 of the 6 teams the last 4 years. This is why a new college football playoff format is being instructed. It's almost like you're penalizing these 4 teams who constantly do their job every single year. And instead of expecting the others to catch up, we just expand the field and say, okay, everyone gets a sucker. Everyone gets a piece of candy now. Everyone gets whatever. Anyways, that's this whole separate argument. But I did find that interesting. That 4 of the top 5, Kev, are the same 4 of the top 5 that we've had the last 4 years. So Alabama comes in at number 1, Clemson number 2, Oklahoma 3. They got 2 first place votes, by the way. I found that interesting. Maybe a little SEC love. Ohio State comes in at number 4, Georgia at number 5. And by the way, are we viewing like Oklahoma as a Big 12 team right now, correct? Like that's how, everything they do is Big 12 moving forward. But so Bama 1, Clemson 2, Oklahoma 3, Ohio State 4, and Georgia 5. And if you really care, Texas A&M at 6, Notre Dame 7, Iowa State at 8, North Carolina 9, and the Bearcats come in at number 10. Now, for that big week 2 matchup that the Buckeyes are going to be welcoming to the shoe, the Oregon Ducks out of the Pac-12. Oregon comes in at number 12. And you would have to imagine, and look, it's funny how voters do this, by the way. Oregon will be a top 10 team by week 2. I don't know who Oregon has in week 1, but Oregon will take care of business in week 1, and then it'll be a top 10 showdown, and that's how it'll be billed. And then, of course, you take your biggest game of the week and you slap it at noon. So very frustrating. Your overall just the takeaways, again, not overreacting to these polls, but they're interesting. Ohio State at number 4 was in the national championship game a year ago. They return a ton of talent. They're replacing the quarterback, but so is Alabama. And to sit here and say that Alabama is the 63 first place votes, to sit there and say that they are the preseason number 1, not even close to the number 2 team, I just think that of all the teams that have question marks, Ohio State and Alabama have about the same amount of question marks, and I also think they have the same amount of talent. I don't have a problem with Clemson at 2, but I do find it interesting that Oklahoma is at number 3.
For me, my first reaction to that is actually looking at the poll. I think Bama, for right or wrong, is getting the benefit of the doubt. If you look at all the players that they lost to the NFL last season, I mean, the 2 starting wide receivers, the starting running back, 2 offensive linemen that are starters, the quarterback starter, a defensive back, defensive tackle. So they've lost a ton of starters, and not at positions that say like, all right, man, this is like a kind of plug and play. We can play that plug and play situation with like, all right, man, we can plug and play a running back. We can plug and play a linebacker. Like, they are missing the trigger man, the quarterback, and the 2 best receivers. Their receivers went in the top 10 picks, both of them. So my first reaction to that is the guys that I saw at the other spots for Alabama in the wide receiver spot, Michi, the Drake kid, and obviously the transfer Jamison Williamson coming from Ohio State. Are those guys as good as the guys that they lost? I'm not sure. I guess we're going to find out. But I think that Alabama's a little high, in my opinion. Personally, I would have Georgia number 1, Oklahoma 2, Ohio State 3, Clemson 4, and Bama at 5.
That's a good point, because if we knew who the Buckeyes quarterback was, they'd be number 2.
Right.
And if you're saying that Ohio State's at number 4 because you don't know who their quarterback is, then why is Bama 63 first place votes to be number 1? And Georgia, you're right. Georgia brings back the most experience of anybody on both sides of the ball, and they're secure at quarterback. Is he the best quarterback in college football? No, but he is the most. You're very familiar with what he does and with the weapons he has. Rattler, of course. I have no problem with Oklahoma being that high, but the flaws of Oklahoma from a team as a whole always seem to come back to bite them in the behind, but that's history. This is about this upcoming year.
Right.
But you can't say Ohio State's number 4 because we don't know much about the quarterback, and then put Bama at number 1 with 63 first place votes.
Right.
So that's where you know what? These polls are stupid. They mean nothing. My team's not where I want them to be. These polls mean nothing. Like I said,
I just look at it from that perspective. Like, all right, Mac Jones is in the NFL now. So is Justin Fields. Well, guess who else is in the NFL from Alabama? They're 2 star wide receivers. But guess who's back at Ohio State? They're 2 star wide receivers. So I don't know. I can't, in good faith, put Alabama number 1 because I would be perfectly honest. I don't know what their backups look like. They played in a lot of games because they blew a lot of people out last year, but Bryce Young, I know he's a 5-star quarterback and everything like that. This time last year, probably on this date last year, we were asking the question, is Alabama going to start Bryce Young or are they going to start Mac Jones? And obviously they made the right decision by rolling Mac Jones out there and him winning them a national championship and everything like that, an undefeated season. But I think sometimes we give these schools the benefit of the doubt, saying like, oh, man, they're a football factory. And then they overlook the teams that are bringing back a ton of returning starters. Like Oklahoma's bringing back a ton, not only on offense, but defense. Georgia is bringing back offense and defense. Same thing for Ohio State. Obviously, the main guy, the trigger man, is gone there with Fields, but they got a lot of weapons around whomever is going to be the starting quarterback. At Texas A&M, they're bringing back a ton on offense, but they're missing their starting quarterback and everything like that. I just think like Bama is getting like, would you say 60 what? 63 first place votes. And
none for Ohio State, 2 for Oklahoma, none for Clemson, which Ohio State, by the way, they have question marks. I have no problem with them not garnering any first place votes, but you can't convince me that there are more question marks for Ohio State than Alabama.
Exactly.
They bring in the same type of talent, and they're both having to replace the most important position, which is quarterback. So, and you look at all the wide receivers that Alabama lost. That's Ohio State, that position group. So you lose all of those wide receivers and Mac Jones.
Right.
And Ohio State loses Justin Fields, which is a big loss, but the program has earned the reputation with the program's recent reputation at quarterback. Like, you have to give them the benefit of the doubt there with all the experience at wide receiver and all the running back talent that they have as well. So it's just interesting. Now, again, this says it's a coaches poll. A lot of it has to do with that too, as far as the coaches are concerned.
And to be fair, like,
and the SEC gets multiple votes. Remember, they have more teams than anybody else, so their vote
The preseason poll doesn't matter for Ohio State and Alabama, because if they run the table, they'll be perfectly fine. The preseason poll truly matters for teams that are non-power fives, like our UCs, like our Coastal Carolinas, like our UCFs and everything like that. It matters to those teams immensely, because not only are they trying to get into the college football playoff, but like the second prize is going to a power bowl game, to play a big dog in that bowl game and to get that big revenue check and everything like that. So they're playing for two things. They're playing for the opportunity to win a national championship, but also playing for the opportunity to be on that big stage.
All right. It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine. We'll step away for a few. I see people in here saying, ready to jump on the phones. We opened up the phone lines during the commercial break so that we come back to take your calls. So after this commercial break, or once we go to this commercial break, we will open up the phone lines and take your calls on the other side. Real quick, to the Facebook feed we go. So Brad Mays, shout out to Brad Mays. Golfed with him earlier today. Just want to give him a shout out. Brad Mays says he agrees with you, Kev. Never golfing with him again. Anyone that agrees with Kev is no friend of mine. Brad says, didn't Bama switch OC this year as well? Their offensive coordinator thing with Bama is they have such a good O-line. It doesn't seem to matter much at the skill positions. And like, that's the important part of any team for football at any level, is the offensive line. He also said he agreed with you on, so I clicked on the wrong. He said, very true, Kev, about the preseason polls. They do help the small teams outside of the Power Five. Don't know if it matters as much for teams inside the Power Five. So you're right. Cincinnati, they have to work twice as hard as a middle of the pack, like a Georgia Tech. If Georgia Tech starts out the year 5-0, Kev, they're going to be a top 15 team. Yep. Right. Like, it doesn't even matter if they play anyone significant. It's, an undefeated Power 5 team, a good month into the season. They have to be good, right? Like, that's what those polls do. Cincinnati could be undefeated, and they could end up being guys like me who say, well, who are they playing? Even though Georgia Tech probably plays nobody too, but you know what I'm saying? Like, it's that type of thing. So that's important there. David Shaw says Georgia at 1. They haven't done a damn thing. Well, no one's done a damn thing. It's let's see, August 10th. No one's done a damn thing. It's a preseason poll based on expectation.
They're returning. I want to say, if my memory serves correct, they're returning 18 starters.
Yeah, on both sides, between both sides of the ball. I mean, they're the most they are the most experienced team coming back as far as the top 10 team. They're the most experienced top 10 team from a year ago, and it definitely helps that they have JT Daniels. Daniels was good. Like, I think he only played 4 games last year. Like, so he only played 4. He threw for like well over 1,000 yards, and he had 10 touchdowns. Like, that's a lot of spike for just a few games. So I'm just saying, like, they went up against very good opponents down that stretch too. He was a part of their latter run, which is why they were in the conversation to make the playoffs, even though they had no business being in that conversation because of the amount of losses that they had. But when he was put in that lineup, all of a sudden they look like a much different team. So I don't know what that means. They haven't done a damn thing. Well, no, he said they're the most overhyped team in the country every year. I mean, I don't know about that. I think Notre Dame's pretty overhyped every single year. Georgia, they recruit. They win a lot of games. They're always one of the last teams standing in the SEC. The thing is, they run into Alabama. And are they better than Alabama? Nobody is. Nobody. We love our Buckeyes. They're not even close. Clemson, they've won more championships in the last decade than Ohio State has. They're also not even close to Alabama. So to use Alabama, it's like when Tom Brady was with the Patriots. I hate it when people would say, well, the Patriots do it this way. I don't care what the Patriots are doing. If it was easy to replicate what they do, more teams would be the Patriots, and they're not. So who's that next level team? Georgia's doing right up there with Ohio State and Clemson as far as what they're doing, as far as the recruiting aspect, the wins, you being right there in the conversation at the end. Like, I'm not a Bulldog fan, but I'm not going to sit here and throw them under the bus, Theo Mims, he says Ohio State. What up, Theo? Ohio State's going to go into the championship, baby, period. A lot of confidence there. A lot of confidence. Oh, and more confidence. He goes, Browns are the Super Bowl, baby. Thought I would just throw that out there as well.
I wonder why.
Theo's a smart man. All right, so we'll open up the phone lines. 518-1410. The first preseason poll came out today. And, of course, when your team is ranked high and you like where they're ranked, people love the polls. When your team's not ranked where you want it to be, all of a sudden these polls are meaningless. They don't mean anything. That's just how we're wired. We get sensitive about these things. But the Buckeyes are at number 4. Fair or foul? Doesn't matter to you, but we were discussing our thoughts on these polls and do they matter? We'll be back. 518-1410. More of the Justin Kidder Show with Kev Nash next.
It's the Justin Kidder Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine.
Now at Menards, save big money on your next project with 11% off everything. Dutch Boy DuraClean exterior paint and primer in ones, durable weather-resistant coating stays clean and keeps your home looking beautiful. A gallon of flat paint is $29.79 after 11% rebate. Get 11% off everything now at Menards. Good through August 14th. Savings are mail-in rebate. Some exclusions apply. See store for details.
Save big money at Menards.
Hey, here to tell you about my friends at Cordell Transportation. They're now hiring Class A CDL drivers and offering a $5,000 sign-on bonus. That's right, a $5,000 sign-on bonus. Home daily, dedicated lanes, and no-touch freight. Brand new equipment as well. Medical, dental, vision, and company-paid life insurance. Call Cody right now. Apply online at CordellTransportation.com. Cordell Transportation, driven to succeed.
For the ones who know that a little late is always too late, and that the clock doesn't stop just because you're missing a part, Grainger offers supplies and solutions for every industry. And our Keep Stock inventory management solutions help ensure you have the right stuff in the right place at exactly the right time. Visit Grainger.com/keepstock to learn more. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Oh, whale! Guys, whale! Wow, whale. Oh, that's a big whale. Okay. Whale. Oh, no, whale!
Times can turn quick on the water. Progressive's boat insurance has you covered. Get a quote today in as little as 3 minutes at Progressive.com.
Well, at least it wasn't a shark, am I right?
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates.
Listen to this station anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Odyssey. That's AUDACY.
You may have heard that Allstate has new low auto rates, but isn't it time to see for yourself? Visit allstate.com or call an agent for a quote today.
Excuse me. I know you have a 9 o'clock, so I'll keep this short. I'm the business suit in the back of your closet. You wore me nearly every day before your office went, quote, casual. I used to be the CEO of your closet. Now I'm just that one intern no one ever talks to. I always thought you'd circle back with me, get granular, keep me in the pipeline. But nada, nothing. Don't you remember the McKittrick presentation? You spilled coffee on me and I still looked amazing during the breakout talkback Q&A. So I think it's time for me to move on. I've got a great resume and I absolutely crush it in interviews, okay? Let's make this a clean break. Shift the paradigm. The only thing I ask is that you think outside the box here and do this. Take me to Goodwill, where I can really make a difference.
Your donations to Goodwill create new jobs, training programs, and education assistance for people in your community. To find your nearest donation center, go to goodwill.org. Donate stuff, create jobs. A message from Goodwill and the Ad Council.
I'm probably okay to have one more drink before I drive home. I'm probably okay. I open the window to stay alert. Probably okay. I just popped some gum in my mouth.
Step out of the car, please.
I probably made a mistake.
probably okay isn't okay when it comes to drinking and driving. If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend. Buzzed driving is drunk driving. A message brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Don't miss the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine. Weekdays from 3 to 6 p.m. right here on Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
had to be independent and take initiative. And that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
All sports, all the time. This is 1410 ESPN Radio.
Well, just because the Cincinnati Bengals have a quarterback in his second year does not mean that they don't get the joys of contract negotiation frustrations. We'll talk about that coming up here in a moment. We've talked a lot we talk a lot about negotiations when it comes to quarterbacks, but you could argue one of the best players, if not the best player outside of quarterback on the Cincinnati Bengals roster, is in need of a contract extension. And well, that could be a potential distraction with all the other potential distractions going on with the Bengals franchise at the moment. We'll talk about that coming up around the corner. But 518-1410, 518-1410, that's the number to call in and jump in on the conversation. Just a reminder, programming note, 505, ESPN college football analyst Kirk Herbstreit is going to call into the show, and we'll chat about, of course, the preseason polls that came out today. Alabama 1, Clemson 2, Oklahoma 3, Georgia 4, or Ohio State 4, I'm sorry, Georgia 5. And Georgia ruffling some feathers, apparently. Shaw, not a fan of Georgia. He says that he does not agree that Georgia is up there with Ohio State and Clemson. I think that they're right up there when it comes to recruiting. I think they're right up there when it comes to the amount of games that they win. And the one team that they seem to run into that's a buzzsaw is the same team that gives everybody fits, and that's Alabama. Now, if you want to say, okay, Ohio State and Clemson in the last decade have beat Alabama to separate themselves from Georgia, okay, fine. But as far as I'm concerned, from a talent standpoint, that's going to be on Kirby. That's going to be on their head coach to take them to that next level, because Ryan Day heading into year 3, if Ryan Day gets back to the college football playoff this year again, Kev, he's going to surpass Kirby. I know people are saying he's already better than Kirby, but I'm not really ready to put Ryan Day over a certain amount of coaches who have been around a while, who've accomplished a lot at the same time. But Ryan Day right now is doing exactly what Kirby's doing from a recruiting standpoint. He's doing it better. Now we got to see what happens on the field, getting to the playoffs 2 straight years, getting to the national title game last year for Ryan Day. I could maybe separate them. I could maybe put, I think Bama's in a tier by themselves. Bama's in a tier by themselves. Clemson, Ohio State in tier 2. And then I think you kind of get Georgia in that 3. I think Georgia's like fringe tier 2 right into fringe tier 3, because the tier 3 teams aren't as good as Georgia, in my opinion.
Right.
Well, but then again, LSU's won a national title, so it's like
that's the crazy thing about it, because you look at LSU and you look at their program. Yeah, they have the natty, but more consistent team has been Georgia.
Yep.
So would you trade in that consistency for the national championship? That's what the argument is. For me, you look at Georgia and everything that they got going on at their program. They're a blown coverage away from having a national championship. Like that, like everybody's all open arms about, Tua coming into the game and giving Saban all this credit and everything like that for benching Jalen Hurts and everything. It's a blown coverage. Is the play before that. Tua took like a 10-yard sack. So like Georgia is literally a blown coverage away from having a national championship, and that being basically irrelevant. You know what I mean? So for me, I look at Georgia as this, especially this season, as you got to do it. You got to do it. You're returning 18 starters. You got your quarterback there. For whatever reason, he wasn't playing last year. Some people say it was an injury. Some people say it was some other stuff. The point of the matter is he played down the back stretch of the season, got a lot of reps, won a lot of football games, got beat to shreds in that game versus UC, but still stood tough in the pocket and made the necessary throws for his team to win the football game. And they're coming into this season looking like they should make a run at the national championship. And I think they should. I think that Georgia should win it. I would have Georgia in my college football playoff. Like, they are definitely a top 4 team. And if they don't make the college football playoff, it's a bust of a season. I don't like to put like that type of voodoo magic out there, like that NBA type of talk on there. It's a championship or bust. But for Georgia, with 18 starters back, it's championship or bust. And I think that really, to be perfectly honest, is only one team that this season is a championship or bust type of situation is Georgia. I don't have any other team out there with that expectations that I do with Georgia. Like you talked about, they're always in top 5 in recruiting. They're returning so many starters. It's championship or bust for Georgia this year.
Yeah, and here's the deal when it comes to Georgia. I mean, their schedule. I mean, they open up Clemson Saturday, September 4th. Now, that's an interesting thing because I started looking at their schedule. Their SEC schedule is not the strongest. I mean, they avoid Bama. They're the Wisconsin of the SEC in regards to, like, that's the other thing. If you want to talk about, Michigan, to me, very overrated every single year. Wisconsin, I would put in that same overrated conversation at times because they get hyped up every single year. And then Ohio State, if they run into them in the Big Ten title game, Ohio State shows the gap between what everyone is saying is a top 10 Wisconsin team and then what an actual top 10 team looks like in Ohio State. That's why Ohio State's the best and the worst. Like, Ohio State and Alabama are the best and worst things about their conference because you want to hype up your conference as a whole, and then you convince people all year, Wisconsin, they're top 10. They're top 10.
I think they are top 10. I think there's a top 10, and then there's
But you're exposed when you get blown out. You can't get blown out as a college football playoff. I think
there's a top 10, and I think that they are a top 10 team, but I think the top 3 are just that much better than everybody else.
Fair enough, because we've also seen the gap between 1 and 4 is so significant that to sit there and hold the 8th team in the country to a higher standard than what the 4th team in the playoff looks like half the time. But I guess my point is that at times we talk about, man, they beat Ohio State, they're going to be college football playoff team. And then it's like they don't just get beat, they get beat down. Now, Ohio State's created that. They've created that. And that's fine. That's who they are, just like Alabama's created that. But, that's the thing, though, is Wisconsin needs to do what, like, Georgia plays Bama tough. The reason that people get so mad when the SEC gets 2 teams in, because if you're undefeated all year and you lose by 3 to Alabama in the SEC championship game, why shouldn't they be in the playoff as far as I'm concerned? Because that means you've beaten Florida. It means you've beaten Auburn. That means you've beaten LSU. You've beaten a lot of good enough teams to put you in that equation. That's why I said the other day, there are such things as good losses. And sometimes Bama is a good loss. And if Wisconsin can ever find a way to get to the point to where they're undefeated and they're able to play up to Ohio State's level and actually lose by maybe a field goal or 1 possession and play them tight, they could be in that conversation. I really don't believe in the bias thing. I just think that, I think there are biases that the SEC doesn't have to work as hard to put away. But at the same time, the record speaks for itself and the results speak for themselves when you look at the in-game action and, look at the recruiting numbers as well is kind of where I'm coming out with that. But 518-1410, Kev, who do we have?
Mr. Know-It-All.
Mr. Know-It-All. Class is in session. How are you, sir?
Hey, how you doing? Good to hear from you guys. Hey, and listen, you guys have kind of really summed up everything that needs to be said, but you didn't put it in the right perspective. Justin, you've used, since I've been on hold, you've used the word recruiting 3 times.
Mm-hmm. That matters.
And Kev, to your point, you're right. When you guys are talking about these tiers, this is why we talked last week about the big conferences are eventually going to break off and do their own thing, because the NCAA has no weight anymore. Now, you have to realize this is the coaches' poll. Who better knows how to put these teams other than the coaches? Because, Justin, you used the word recruiting. What this is there's a GA at each one of these schools, or a director of football operations, or whatever fancy titles they're giving them now, special operation, whatever it is, football assistant to the head coach. But what they're doing is they take, and each one of these top 4 schools, and you're right, it's tiers. Alabama isn't a tier by itself. Ohio State and Clemson is the next tier. Then you got your LSUs, your Notre Dame, and your Georgias. Those three are in a tier by themselves. And then you have almost everybody else that you can put in any other tier. But you look at the number one recruiting classes over the past, say, 5 years. Each one of these schools, these top 4 schools, have had the top recruiting class. Now, you say, okay, but Alabama lost everybody to the pros. But reason why that thing that you guys keep saying about they're returning 18 starters, they're returning not, because you look at these big boy schools that we're talking about, it's not just about starters. You got non-starters who got drafted this year. They play a lot. They play a lot. So it's about, and that goes back to recruiting. See, the second and third stringers on Alabama, Ohio State, and Clemson, they're starters at North Carolina. They're starters at these same Big Ten schools or some of these same SEC schools. You see what I mean? So these schools just reload. So when you're talking about ranking, even though Alabama lost a lot to draft day, they still return a lot of guys who played a lot, who have experience. So that's fair.
That's fair. I'll give you that, because it's not like, it's, they're getting you're talking about more than half the games are done by halftime, and more than half the games, these guys are getting just as many snaps and opportunities in the second half as the starters did in the first. So, okay, that's a valid argument, but at the same time, it's just, I don't know. I mean, Ohio State's returning a lot of experienced guys too. If we want to throw out starters, fine, we could throw out that phrasing, but they have just as many experienced players as Bama coming back versus starters. And I'll give you that. I'll eliminate the starters perspective as far as that goes.
Yeah. And then you go, so when you go back to Georgia, okay, Georgia's returning all of the returning 18 starters. But guess what? Them same 18 starters was playing against these Bama rotation guys last year. You see what I mean?
Yep.
So when you look at okay, Bama had the number one recruiting class last year. Clemson had it the year before. All these guys are returning now. That's why these GAs, the head coach just says, okay, yeah, put us number one, put us number 2. And then the GA guy kind of goes back and he looks at these recruiting classes. Okay, who are their returns? So these coaches poll, they really, I like the coaches poll. I give it more validation in the preseason than I do even these writers poll once the season gets started.
What do you think about that, Kev? Coaches poll versus the AP poll. No, I mean, he's not. I see Mr. Know-It-All's point about, like, these are coaches, they know, but at the same time, they know their team. They know their team, and they know their conference. Right. So if a lot of those first place votes, if a lot of those, I know there's not 63 coaches in the SEC. There might be at this point with how many teams keep jumping ship to join the SEC. But my point is, I mean, these coaches, Ryan Day and his staff, I would actually be bothered if they knew every little detail about every other team and their players in the country, because, like, you're supposed to be locked in on your team and locked in on your opponents and yada, yada. But the bottom line is it's an interesting conversation. AP writers poll versus the coaches poll. Kev, do you agree with Mr. Know-It-All as the coaches?
Yeah, I mean, we can go back when Steve Spurrier used to coach. He always used to give Duke a vote in his initial poll and everything like that. So when we talk about, like, is this a real poll? Or who's really voting on this and everything like that? We can dissect it till we're blue in the face. But yeah, there is a little something that goes into these polls. These coaches, especially the head coach, he's not watching, teams out west, or if he's not a West Coast guy and everything like that. Like, he's, like you said, Kenner, he's too busy worrying about his conference and his potential opponents that he'll play down the line.
And they're petty. Dabo Swinney, that's a prime example last year, number 11. Like, we all knew that was, that was a dig.
And you're right, and you guys are right about that. But the only thing I don't want you to underestimate is when you say these coaches don't know. No, they do know more than what you think, because you got to realize it's a thing called recruiting again. Remember, I told you use that word. They recruited some of these guys that are going to some of these other schools that didn't. So they do know something.
If that's the case, Ohio State's not number 4 then.
Especially in conference. Especially in conference. Oh, yes, absolutely. Ryan Day knows half the kids that gone to Michigan. Yes, he does. Ryan Day knows a bunch of the kids that's going to Purdue and Michigan State and Wisconsin. Yes, he does. And if he doesn't, believe me, his staff does.
Yeah, but let me be honest. Let's be honest, Mr. Know-It-All. If you want to know, like, when I asked, do these polls matter? It matters to sports media because look at us. We're talking about it. It matters to fans because they care where their team comes on. Every coach I've talked to, they hate these coaches' polls. They hate them. They hate them with the passion. And with how, especially with the season just weeks away, do you really think that when they sit down in their office and they have this coach's poll on their desk that they are investing hours upon hours into this? No, they're checking boxes just to get it off of their desk. Like, I just don't believe that these coaches are putting a lot of effort and time and passion into this. And I think it reflects in these sometimes.
And you're right about that. They hate these polls. You know why they hate these polls? Because we're talking about it, but guess what? We're dragging them on shows, and now they got to talk about it instead of being able to concentrate and talk about their team. So that part, I agree with you 100%. That these polls get on their nerve. They don't want to be bothered. Once they vote, they don't want to hear nothing else about it. But because they got to go on, especially these top conference teams. Nick Saban, he has to do an interview today about, you guys think you should be ranked number one over. He has to talk about that. Ryan Day has to talk about it, on their local radio show that they do. So I do agree with you 100% about that.
But Mr. Know-It-All, we're out of time.
Everybody else get on.
Yep. You there? We cut him off. We could at least let him say goodbye. Mr. Know-It-All, we didn't mean to cut you off. Next time, I'll at least let you say goodbye. I dropped the call on that. My bad. Next time, I won't hit that button. I apologize for that. But next time, Mr. Know-It-All, he brings up a lot of good points.
Absolutely.
He started to sway me a little bit on the importance of the coaches poll, but the more I thought about it, coaches roll their eyes at these. Every press conference I've been to, every coach I talked to about these preseason polls, they literally, you could just see the disappointment in their voice when reporters take the time. So, Coach, you came in at number 4. Any questions about that? They just look at you like, we kick off in 3 weeks. And you think I give a rip about where we come in a coach's poll? We do our work in the recruiting rankings. We do our work here. So that's why I'm back to, they don't care. When that thing is on their desk or in their email or the link that's sent to them, I have no clue. They don't care. And whether it's a grad assistant filling it out for them, an assistant coach, the AD, who knows? And I think it's common sense who the top teams are every year. So I think it's like, well, I don't know. I'm not going to fill these out. I guess Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, Georgia, or whatever. And then they move on. Like, that's why it's the same every year. So as far as the coaches poll goes, I don't know. I'm just not going to put a whole lot into that. For whatever reason, I don't know if, like, Kirby Smart, like, made fun of David Shaw. He is like, our whole feed is nothing but just Georgia. This is why Georgia sucks. He can write a novel as why Georgia sucks. I just don't understand. He says that they're ranked.
Let's hear.
Georgia is ranked so high because they have 3 road games in the SEC and they avoid the top 3 SEC West teams. But you're focusing on who they avoid. They are the team to avoid in the SEC outside of Alabama. Like, it's not that, Shaw, why do you overcomplicate everything? Common sense says, look at the roster, look at the recruiting rankings, look at the success they had last year, look at the fact that they have one of the top quarterbacks in the country coming back. Let's not make this more complicated than it has to be. Not everything has to be a debate. Not everything has to be this, like, oh, I got to die on this hill. Like, I just don't get it. I mean, this is sounding like an SEC show, me defending Georgia. I don't think they're better than Ohio State. I think they're as good as Ohio State. I think they're as good as Alabama. I really do. I just don't. I don't know. What do you want me to say?
Man, it's college football season, man. It's arguing season.
Oh, good. It's high blood pressure season for Kenner. That's what it sounds like.
Pill emojis in the comments. Pill emojis in the comments. But that's what it is. College football in the NFL, it all sorts itself out because at the end of the day, you have to get on the field and there's nobody going to be having any type of bias because the biases get handled on the field. There aren't any of that in the NFL. But in college football, you can con yourself into believing that there is a bias for a certain conference and they hate your team. Look at this team. They didn't do this. They didn't do that. But in NFL, it's none of that. And that's what college football is based off. College football is based off of arguing.
Your college football playoff 4?
Oh, man. Georgia would definitely be in there.
Then you hear they're no good.
Yeah. Okay. The Oklahoma. Well, shoot, I can just go off my top 4. Georgia, Oklahoma, Ohio State, and Clemson.
See, I think Bama, Georgia get in. I think, but that Clemson Georgia game is important because if the ACC, if North Carolina is not as advertised, which wouldn't surprise me because these coaches polls and these AP polls, they've been trying hard. They have really tried hard to push the North Carolina narrative. The SEC desperately needs that. But if they don't live up to the hype, who else in that ACC matters outside of Clemson? Nobody. So if Clemson loses to Georgia here in a few weeks, and by the way, this is a prime example is why I like the 14 playoff. This matchup matters. And a 12 team, this doesn't matter.
Right.
But Clemson, Georgia matters. Everyone thinks, the playoff starts at the end of December. No, it's actually kicking off here in a few weeks. 14 playoff, I like it. Leave it, because this Georgia Clemson game coming up here in a few weeks, it's a playoff game. Like, Clemson can lose, and if they lose by a field goal, they have breathing room. But if they lose like 38-21, Kev, they're done. They might remain in the conversation the rest of the way, but that's huge for Georgia, because Georgia could then run the table, lose to Bama in the SEC title game, and they're fine. You know what I'm saying? So then now you have Ohio State, then you have Alabama, then you have Georgia, and now you might have an undefeated Notre Dame, Cincinnati. If Cincinnati beats Notre Dame, at Notre Dame, by the way, and they beat Indiana, and they take care of business in their conference and win their conference championship, Cincinnati, they're going to be in the conversation this year. They're looking for, I think for the first time in a long time, you have a team out of the Power Five that the committee is looking for reasons to put them in versus reasons to keep them out. To where every year in the past, it's been, they didn't do this, they didn't do that, they didn't do this. Their roster matters now. Their roster matches the talent of a lot of teams in that top 10. I just think that this is a playoff game coming up, and it matters big time. Hour one flew by. We're just over an hour away from listening being joined by ESPN college football analyst Kirk Herbstreit, former Buckeye. Excited to chat with him coming up around the corner. He has a new book out. We'll talk about his new book, Out of the Pocket. We'll also, of course, talk about the first preseason poll that just came out today, as well as expectations for the Buckeyes. And I'm curious his thoughts on the quarterback situation in Columbus. By the way, I saw the commercial that Quinn Ewers did. It's very tacky. No offense to him, but you forget these kids are 17, 18-year-olds, and they look like 17 or 18-year-olds, all awkward and stuff in these commercials. Honestly, he looks like a freshman. He looks like a child, and it just looks weird.
No, he don't look like a freshman. He looked like a senior in high school.
Fair enough. And you know why?
Because he's a senior.
Because he's a senior in high school. He's the richest senior in high school. Holy smoke.
Cash me out.
I was excited when I was told how much money in student loans I was going to get and what my refund check would be after all my fees were paid. I'll never forget that first refund check I got. I felt like I was Quinn Ewers, baby. Except way less money and way less talent. Hour two next.
And he doesn't have to pay that money back.
You don't have to pay it back. Right?
It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine.
O'Reilly.
Syntec is back and better than ever at O'Reilly Auto Parts. Syntec is a premium full synthetic motor oil at an affordable price. Right now, get 5 quarts of Syntec full synthetic and a Wix filter for just $31.99. Plus, earn double O Rewards points. Minimize friction, heat, and wear on your engine with Syntec full synthetic motor oil exclusively at
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
DoorDash here with Summer of Dash Pass. Right now, Dash Pass members are taking $10 off groceries, alcohol, pet food, and more. Need a nightcap? $10 off. Got a cough? Get relief delivered for less. Want to surprise your crush? Send a gift and save. Try Dash Pass for free and get special savings, exclusive menu items, and $0 delivery fees year-round. Get more from your neighborhood now with Dash Pass in the DoorDash app, and stay cool out there. Terms and conditions apply.
Heard you're buying a car. I brought my calculator.
Dad, I already used Capital One Auto Navigator. I found my car online and got pre-qualified instantly, instead of all that.
You know those things impact your credit score.
Didn't impact my credit score, Dad. Now I'm going to the dealership for a test drive and to make the purchase.
Sounds too easy.
No, it's just easy. Capital One, what's in your wallet?
Terms and conditions apply. Find out more at CapitalOne.com/AutoNavigator.
Napa know-how.
Right
Right now, a 5-quart jug of Napa Full Synthetic Motor Oil is just $18.99. It keeps your engine from breaking down without breaking the bank. Yep, a 5-quart jug of Napa Full Synthetic for $18.99 is not just a great deal. It's the break you've been waiting for. Quality parts, helpful people. That's Napa Know-How.
Napa Know-How.
At participating locations does not include state local taxes or recycling fees. Advertised sales price may not be available in some states. Offer ends 8/31/21.
Staples Connect has everything you need for back to school at amazing prices. Right now, save $55 on the TI-84 Plus CE graphing calculator. It's just $99.99, our lowest price of the season. With savings like that, your student won't just be ready for school, they'll be first day of school pop quiz ready.
It's showtime.
Visit your local Staples store or staples.com/back to school today and get more than ready for back to school with amazing prices for everything on your list. Ends 8/14. Limit 2 per customer. In store only.
Hi, I'm Montgomery County Clerk of Courts Mike Foley.
And I'm Kettering Clerk of Court Rob Scott.
We're teaming up together to expand access to justice in our community. Our Help Center provides legal information and access to legal programs free of charge.
The Help Center can't provide legal advice, but if you need information on a wide range of legal issues, check in with the Help Center at Kettering Municipal Courthouse on the 2nd and 3rd Mondays of the month at no cost to you.
I'm Montgomery County Clerk of Courts Mike Foley.
And I'm Kettering Clerk of Court Rob Scott.
Visit courthouse.u.com.
There's no place like Panera. Enjoy a toasty sandwich served on fresh baked focaccia or a refreshing salad with sweet berries. Panera.
WING 1410 Dayton. Dayton's ESPN Radio. We're live. We're local.
What are you gonna miss? He struck him out.
We're Dayton's ESPN radio station. Let's send it to the WING studios for Dayton's only local sports talk show. It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine.
Man, I just saw on Twitter that Dennis Schroeder, Lakers point guard, or last year's Lakers point guard, the Lakers offered him a 4-year extension at $84 million back in March, and he turned it down because, I mean, and look, there's been a lot of inflated contracts this free agency. A lot of guys are making some money that I was kind of like taken back by, and Schroeder was gambling on himself. And so he turned down a 4-year, $84 million extension by the Lakers back in March. And right now, the only offer on the table is a 1-year, $4 million deal. $5 million with the incentives or whatever by the Celtics, and he turned that down. He wants he wants at least $9. That sucks. That does. And by the way, like, that's a professional that we're talking about that's happening to. Imagine what happens on the college football, or college athletics landscape, but these kids are out looking for their high, and this is what I'm wondering. The name, image, and likeness, and I'm all for it, by the way, but it's going to lead to, if these kids aren't coached, like I do believe, and I'm curious, we have high school football season coming up, and I'm going to start talking about that with some of these coaches. And not every team has a elite level athlete that's going to make bank, but what I hope doesn't happen is that you have kids who are pursuing the money versus the opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Because pursuing the money versus pursuing the best opportunity to put you in a position to make the money that actually matters. Like, who's going to be able to shape these kids' mind to get them to realize that, okay, there was a lot of years of athletes making no money in college, dedicating 3 years in college to prepare their bodies mentally and physically to go make the real money in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're going to make a bad decision because you're going to chase where the money is. Like, Quinn Ewers might not be making the best decision. I know that sounds crazy. Hear me. I'm not doing it. And just for those people out there who think they know how to do my job, they don't. But I'm not stirring the pot. This isn't a hot take. But, Justin Fields going to Georgia, I think it's safe to say that, maybe he didn't make the right decision there, right? Like he knew the starter was there. He wanted to play right away. He knew how much time was left on that quarterback's, as far as his eligibility was concerned. Maybe he didn't make the right decision. Now, we're not talking money in this particular case, but he wanted to play. We're going to see a lot more guys chasing money like Ewers, because Texas wouldn't allow him to make money in high school. So, screw it. I'll just leave high school, go to college, make money for a year, and then find out that, oh, wow, CJ Stroud's pretty good. They get to the title game in 21, and now Ryan Day doesn't want to sit him in year 2. And now here I am screwed. I'm year 2 at Ohio State, and I might have to wait another year of not playing. That's a year from now, we could be having that conversation. A year from now, we could be sitting here saying that C.J. Stroud is the starting quarterback of the Buckeyes. Quinn Ewers might be the Justin Fields of the situation that's better than the current quarterback. But Ryan Day might have to say, we're comfortable right now. We don't want to rock the chemistry of this team. Even though you might be better, we know what we have here. We don't want to risk it. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm over-exaggerating that, but I just think this is interesting to me.
Or C.J. Stroud just might be better. Like, I know people are just ready to put Ewers in there and have him take over the keys to the ship and just have us win 4 straight national championships and just throw C.J. Stroud to the wolves and everything like that. But C.J. might be better.
Yep.
He just might be better. He
better for the Buckeyes.
Yeah, been in the weight program an entire year, been learning the playbook for an entire year, and expect someone that should be a senior in high school to understand a complex playbook and to be able to take that information that he's learning in the classroom, meaning the classroom at the football facility, and then implement that into practice and then implement that into a game. It's not as easy as, everybody wants to make it out to be. But you're right. We are going to see situations like that. We're going to see kids making questionable decisions to get the money in the short term as opposed to the long term. And that's a process all about growing up.
Never that I would say this. Lane Kiffin ruffling some feathers in the SEC, and I found it interesting, like his take on some things. And look, this isn't a political conversation, so let's not take it there. But Lane Kiffin, they have 240 people in the program, all vaccinated. And Lane Kiffin in his press conference yesterday said, look, I don't want to get into a big argument about what's right or wrong, but I think it's irresponsible to get vaccinated. Now, that sounds like a triggering quote that is going to get reaction from people, right? He goes on to elaborate. And I think whatever your stance is on the vaccine, I have a hard time believing that you're going to disagree with his next take because it's Lane Kiffin. I know we want to hate everything about Lane Kiffin. Because listen to this quote he had. He says, football is different than a normal job. When me and you, if we choose not to get vaccinated, or if our job says we have to and we don't, we'll just work from home. We could do our radio show from home. We can cover games from home. We could, you know what I mean? Like everything can be done remotely. He's saying that football is different than a normal job. You're impacting people's abilities to play games on certain weeks and make money on certain weeks and getting shut down. This is not a normal job where you can just stay at home and Zoom in on Saturday. And regardless of your opinion on whether you should wear a mask or not wear a mask or get a vaccine or not get a vaccine, he's not wrong. He's not wrong. Like this isn't. And by the way, not every job is the same. And there are jobs out there, like our job can be done remotely. If our company came down on this hard and said, get vaccinated or you're not allowed to come to the building, have to work from home. Okay. But it can be done. Mm-hmm. Football, you can't. It's not like, all right, Quinn Ewers, if you're not going to get vaccinated, that's fine. We'll just have someone hold an iPad and we'll drop you back and you just point where you want us to throw the ball for you. It doesn't work that way. Right. I think Lane Kiffin brings up a good point here. And of course, he's getting destroyed from the SEC fan base. He may not last long in the SEC at this point, regardless of whether he wins games or not. But convince me that that's a wrong take. He's not wrong. And that's the case in the NFL and the NBA, sports in general. If, at the end of the day, if your decision is keeping a company from continuing to move on, because that's what the NCAA is, we're past this whole amateur thing. It may still try to be that, but it's not. Let's just be real. If your decision is keeping games from happening, money being made, and you're impacting groups as a whole, yeah, that's different than, oh, well, I'm not vaccinated, but don't worry, I could just work from home. That's much different. It's not the same thing. So I thought that was an interesting take.
Yeah, I mean, Vax talk on the Justin Kinner Show. Watch out, world.
I mean, look, I'm not really getting into our opinions. I just thought that was an interesting take from him because the SEC and him speaking out on it. That's
you're
all.
Right, and he's right. I mean, any job out there, like a ton of places that didn't think that they could work from home, were forced to work from home and realized like, oh, we can do this. And you know what? You don't even actually need to live in the same state to do your job anymore. And companies are cool with it as long as you're doing what you're supposed to do. And, productivity.
Sometimes not even then.
People are still producing and bringing in the revenue that they're supposed to bring in, then companies are cool with it. So, but like you said, like you can't play a sport dialed in on Zoom. it's not a video game. This ain't Madden. This ain't, you know what I'm saying, 2K. You know what I'm saying? So it's a lot that takes place with that, especially when you're talking about in college football. A lot of these college football programs are in small towns. Like Tuscaloosa ain't a big town. Clemson, South Carolina, it's not a big town. Like we think of, Columbus as, oh man, it's the capital city, it's a big city and everything like that. Well, Columbus hasn't always been that huge of a city that it is currently. So, I think our perspective of Ohio State and a big college town is totally different. When you think of a traditional college town, you think of the Bowling Greens of Ohio, you think of the Athens, you think of Miami of Ohio.
Think of here.
Yeah.
Like for basketball.
This is even a big city compared to a lot of these other places. Look at
That's a good point. I didn't think of it like that. Like, yeah.
Like, look at Miami of Ohio. It's a small town with a lot of mom and pop places. We have big buildings here.
Its main road is all brick.
Yeah. So a lot of these towns depend on college football for those 5-6 games a season to make their money. The hotels, like, oh yeah, it's $20 a night on a regular night, but come Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, it's quadruple the price. Like, all right, the bars are packed and all this type of stuff. So a lot of these people and businesses depend on college football. So with you not being vaccinated, it's gonna create a domino effect that people really don't think about. Like, all right, if we don't have a game, if we have to cancel this game, how much money did this city lose because we didn't play a football game? So it's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah, so I mean, I get people like, I'm not getting into the deep reasons of why people want to get a vaccine or not, but I mean, at the end of the day, this is why teams and sports and coaches are urging their players to get vaccinated. And it's like, oh, well, you only wanted to do it so we could play games. Well, yes. Yes. Yeah. But we're not holding you down and jabbing you with the needle. It's, we need you to get vaccinated so we can play football and not have to have interruptions and not cost the local mom and pop shops, their money to stay open. And forget just the mom and pop shops, with the bigger businesses, the national businesses, the economy as a whole in these cities that live it. I mean, we talked about the importance of, I'll never forget hearing how Cleveland just got destroyed when LeBron left. Mm-hmm. So many businesses closed down because LeBron James, one individual, not a team. I know the Browns are taken out of Cleveland, which was devastating, but one individual left a city and so many businesses shut down because all that foot traffic, all those customers, everything was just gone when LeBron left. One guy leaving impacted all of that. We're talking about more than just one guy here. We're talking about a machine that doesn't stop. We saw that machine not stop last year. It slowed down a bit, but they found a way to keep fighting through. Right. So it's going to be interesting. But I thought that was interesting that Lane Kiffin caught by the media by surprise. They were all expecting a different stance on him. And then I watched the press conference. Everyone got real hushed. Like, wait, did he really? He just said that? Very interesting stuff. So we'll see.
I agree with Lane Kiffin, but like I said before, I think we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Like, I'm with them, encouraging players to be vaccinated and their coaching staff to be vaccinated. But I want them also to encourage the general population to be vaccinated as well, because what you don't want is someone that owns a mom and pop diner telling the football team, you guys need to be vaccinated, and themselves and their employees aren't vaccinated, because that's when it comes at crossroads of like, well, you need to get vaccinated so we can make this money. Well, are you vaccinated? No, I ain't putting that in my body. Like, that's where a major disconnect happens, at least in my opinion. Well,
I know there's coaches have been Nick Saban was actually the very first college coach to appear in an ad to promote getting vaccinated. Actually, it was the mask. Technically, it was the mask a year ago. Like, the very first coach of his power that was in an ad, a PSA, TV or radio, was Nick Saban. I thought that was interesting. And he could be mayor. He could resign today as coach and be mayor over there. And he didn't get any pushback, surprisingly enough. It's like, I'll never forget those Bob Knight stories, man. Like, this isn't about the pandemic. This is just about, I'll never forget those Bob Knight stories where he ruled that whole area. Like, when they were rioting outside that campus during that whole stretch, they had SWAT teams. They had everyone out there to calm everything down. No one can get it under control. Bob Knight comes out. It's been awesome. Go home. Be safe. Everyone cleared. Like, it is like these guys, man, like, it's insane. Urban was close to that in Columbus. Woody was that. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like Day's not like that yet. They would have to be around a little bit longer and have a little bit more pull. But you know what I'm saying? Like, it's scary sometimes, the power that these but it doesn't have to be scary. It could be put to good use. And I'll give Saban that. he hasn't hid from this. He's actually been out in the forefront of it at the same time. So it's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine. I know we have guys on hold. We're going to get to your calls on the other side. The first college football the first college football rankings are out. The preseason rankings: Alabama 1, Clemson 2, Oklahoma 3, Ohio State 4, and Georgia 5. Some other teams of interest, of course, the Bearcats, Cincinnati. They come in at number 10. Oregon comes in at number 12. Why is that interesting? Well, Ohio State has a week 2 matchup with Oregon. Of course, Ohio State will open up the season here in just a few weeks, Thursday night against Minnesota. Some other teams of interest: Wisconsin comes in at number 15, Iowa at 18 out of the Big Ten, Indiana, Kev, coming in at 17. That's a big deal because, as of right now, Indiana, 17 in the country. You look at Notre Dame coming in at number 7. That's big because those are the 2 premier non-conference opponents for the Cincinnati Bearcats, who come in at number 10. You were able to get wins over those 2 and then go undefeated in your conference. Like, this could be the year finally. Texas comes in at number 19, along with Penn State at 20. And then how about Louisiana? They come in at 23. Coastal Carolina. You brought up some great points about the importance of these polls being more so for these types of teams, because now those teams, do you think anyone out there, Kev, was going to look up, I wonder how Coastal Carolina is doing this year? You know what? How are the Raging Cajuns doing? Let's see how Louisiana is doing. They were never going to do that. But now that they're in this poll, now those are those small teams that you're going to give attention to that you wouldn't have. But you'll watch the Power Fives. You'll watch the Power Five standings and say, oh, man, Miami, the Hurricanes, they're 7-0.
Right.
Man, they must be on to something. We have to move them up. They're 7-0. They're playing Division I, high, Power 5 team. But Coastal Carolina could be out of the top 25 on this, be undefeated 5 weeks in, and they still wouldn't be getting any love because, well, they're Coastal Carolina, right? So that's a good point about these meaning a lot for these smaller teams, especially Cincinnati coming in at number 10. That's big. 518-1410, 518-1410. That's the number to call in. Out of the Pocket, Kirk Herbstreit's latest book that'll be available in stores beginning next week. And we're going to chat with Kirk Herbstreit coming up here just under an hour from now, 5:05. We'll hear from the former Buckeye. Excited to chat with him, all things college football, and looking at his new book. Kev Nash, Justin Kinner with you here. Show brought to you by Orion Sports Medicine. We'll be back in just a few moments.
It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash on 1410 ESPN Radio.
ESPN 1410 Wing AM weather.
This afternoon will be partly cloudy with a chance of showers and thunderstorms, a high near 92. Tonight will be partly cloudy and humid, a low around 75. And tomorrow will be partly cloudy with a chance of showers and thunderstorms, a high near 92. I'm Pete Spivak for 1410 ESPN Radio.
Wendy's only makes one kind of breakfast, your new favorite one. How do we do it? With fresh cracked eggs, oven-baked bacon, and flaky croissants. You know, the things your old breakfast wasn't doing. So toss that old news and its soggy eggs somewhere useful. And get to Wendy's, where the sausage, egg, and Swiss croissant, bacon, egg, and Swiss croissant, and honey butter chicken biscuit are just 2 for $4. Choose wisely. Choose Wendy's 2 for $4.
Limited time only. Single item at regular price. Price and participation may vary at U.S. Wendy's.
There's no place like Panera. Enjoy a toasty sandwich served on fresh baked focaccia or a refreshing salad with sweet berries. Panera.
If you need new roofing, siding, or gutters, skylights, or patio enclosures, if you're a homeowner or business and need someone you can trust, don't take a chance. Enhance with Lance. Lance Roofing and Siding in Fairborn has been satisfying customers since 1993 and hold an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. Lance Roofing and Siding, 8460 Dayton Springfield Road in Fairborn. Call for a free estimate at 864-2722. That's 864-2722 or online at lanceroofing.com.
Hi folks, it's me again, and I'm cooking in the sun just like you are. But you know, you can still plant those trees and shrubs right now, and with proper watering, still gain a full summer's growth. We keep our garden center fully stocked all summer long with thousands of good, healthy trees, shrubs, evergreens, perennials, and annuals, because we know that some folks just can't get it all done in the spring. Also, this time of the year, there are lots of bargains all over our 6-acre nursery and greenhouses. We have potted rose bushes as low as $8.95, flats of annuals starting at $8.95, and hanging baskets starting at $6.95. We still have a great selection of Rose of Sharon, boxwoods, hydrangeas, and barberry, and lots of ponds, pottery, and statuary. So come on out to 1309 Brand Pike, and remember, we're open 7 days.
The Meyer Distribution Center in Tip City is hiring for warehouse positions in all units, which include flexible schedules, best-in-class benefits, enhanced starting wages, and $1,500 sign-on bonus. Apply online at jobs.meyer.com. Keyword search distribution, location Tip City, or call 937-669-9109, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m., Monday through Friday. Walk-in interviews are also available Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Call 937-669-9109. Meyer is an equal opportunity employer.
Ad paid for by CompleteCar.com.
This is a special alert to all Americans who own a vehicle with less than 200,000 miles with an auto warranty about to expire or with no warranty coverage at all. Due to the COVID crisis, we are announcing a low-cost extended service plan that is now available to the public to save any driver out-of-pocket expenses on auto repairs. Call now to find out how you can pay nothing for auto repairs. Yes, you heard that correctly. Pay nothing for auto repairs. An open phone line has been established for all drivers to call for a free quick quote. Call 800-549-1980 now. Drivers who are covered by this auto protection will not have to pay for a covered repair bill again. This auto coverage is at an all-time low, much lower than what dealerships are charging. Additionally, drivers who activate this auto coverage today will also receive free roadside assistance, free towing, and free rental car at no additional cost. Call for your free quick quote today. 800-549-1985. 800-549-1985. What do you have to lose? Again, 800-549-1985.
Want to hear something amazing? Discover matches all the cash back you earn on your credit card at the end of your first year. Learn more at discover.com/match. Limitations apply.
The Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine. Weekdays at 3 p.m. right here on Dayton's ESPN radio station, 1410 Wing AM. College football playoffs, Browns, Bengals, Buckeyes, and more. Catch the Keith Byers Show Mondays at noon on 1410 ESPN Radio.
Justin Kinner, Kev Nash, back with you here on 1410 ESPN Radio. Listen, stream, and now watch. You can listen to the show weekdays from 3 to 6 on 1410 Wing AM. You can stream us live at wingam.com, and you can watch us live weekdays from 3 to 6 on Facebook. Search The Justin Kinner Show. That's where you can, of course, like the show, be a part of the conversations throughout the day, as well as watch the show. We'll bring your comments into the show and interact with you that way. And that is the perfect way for me to tell you that you're stupid if you don't agree with me. So please make sure you take advantage of the opportunity for Kinner to, be rude and all that fun stuff. Like, yes, I know I have a problem, but I'm working on it, but I can't work on it unless I have people to work on it with. So you're my guinea pigs. I can't tell people I'm not much nicer, but not interact with people. Select few. That bring
we work well
the
together.
Best and worst. I had a little rough start at the beginning. It wasn't a you thing. It was a me thing.
Definitely wasn't me.
Because I wasn't used to having someone challenge me the way that you do. So I was like, okay, I got to redirect my, how did you got yelled? I yelled at you 3 times and you said that you looked like you were ready to kill me. But the problem is you couldn't because cameras.
Yeah.
But, before we had cameras, you could do whatever. And be like, I don't know. He was like that when I walked in.
What are you talking about, boss? He's always bleeding from his neck.
Now, there's a lot of sports radio shows that have eliminated the Michael Jordan LeBron debate because it's just overdone. It's lazy, blah, blah, blah. And we're all about lazy, or at least I am, But we can't talk about that here because it brings out the worst in me. Because, like most of you, Kev's wrong. LeBron's the GOAT. Just saying. Anyways. All right. It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine. Kirk Herbstreit, former Centerville Elk, former Buckeye, ESPN college football analyst. He's going to join us coming up here just over a half hour from now. Out of the Pocket is his latest book, and we'll chat with him about the makings of the book and what work went into putting that book out, which will be made available next week in stores. So we'll highlight all of that, as well as talk about the potential college football playoff expansion. We'll talk about Quinn Ewers and the Buckeyes coming up. We'll do all of that stuff. So keep in mind that's coming up around the corner. So going back to the Facebook feed, Doug Toby on Quinn Ewers, Kev, says, pretty sure Quinn Ewers will be a red shirt. He's not a Trevor Lawrence, just my opinion. I'm not Mr. Know-It-All. Mr. Know-It-All is good people, Doug. Just saying. But for one, there's a couple things in there. You're right. I do believe he's going to be redshirted this year. But don't be surprised if something crazy, like we're going to find out the power of name, image, and likeness. And what I mean by that is we're going to find out if the money that comes into name, image, and likeness, how much of that money also comes with a Buckeye stipend. What I mean by that is he has the chance to make close to 7 figures, but you think Ohio State's not getting anything compounded on top of that? You think that a lot of those deals that include the Buckeye logo, that include a lot of the Ohio State paraphernalia and stuff, they're making money too. And I'm pretty sure that there's going to be some companies that say, well, if we do invest millions into this, we're going to see this kid play. Is he going to be out there this year? If not, maybe call us in a year and we'll talk about it when he's the starter next year. Oh, you don't know if he's going to be the starter? Man, I don't know. I'll just go to Bama with that one kid, the third stringer. I'm sure, he'll. So that's what I mean. Like, we're going to find out the power of name, image, and likeness as far as what comes with it. If it's strictly players getting the money, they do their social media stuff, they do a couple TV ads, and then he goes and he's the backup with the red shirt. Okay. You can't tell me that you think it's going to be that smooth. You think it's going to be that simple, huh?
Especially
it's never that simple, right? I hope you're right, but I think it's going to get complicated.
That way because
it's already complicated.
They're paying for them to be on social media. They're paying, like, these kids aren't shooting like commercials for Honda and Kia and everything like that. They're not doing that. They're doing just like we saw Quinn Ewers with Instagram post or a Twitter post and everything like that, because they have a bazillion followers and they're verified on social media and everything like that.
You think he's getting 7 figures just for that?
No, I don't think he's getting 7 figures.
I don't think it's that fast or that drink that is
a combination of like a bunch of smaller deals that add up to that, and that's awesome for him. I mean, goodness gracious, sign me up for that any day. But I think that the one thing that coaches still have, and they should always have in any sport, is that fruit of playing time. I determine who plays and who doesn't play, and who's the best to make this team win. And if Ewers isn't the best person to make that team win, he shouldn't play. I don't care how much money he's making off the field. I don't care what soda company is paying him X amount of dollars. Coach determines who plays and who doesn't. And if he isn't the best guy to help Ohio State win games and win national championships, then he doesn't play. And that's not going to affect his money because he already got it. So if he goes out there and practice and takes what he's learning in the Buckeye classroom and is the best guy, more power to him. Look, man, I'm all with anybody getting their money, but more importantly, I'm all about the best guy winning the job. I don't want somebody winning a job just because they made an endorsement deal and like, all right, man, I got to play him. I mean, that just goes back to, saying nepotism about, this person's only on the team because his dad's the coach. Well, if he ain't good enough, get him out of here. You know what I'm saying? So I truly believe that the coaches still have that last bit of power, is I control who's playing. And more importantly, Coach Day is always under pressure because he's the head coach at Ohio State. And that pressure is not only to win a national championship, but it's to blow everybody and their mom out. Because you know how we get if we have a 7-point victory over a team that we deem irrelevant or anything like that, is to blow everybody out, beat Michigan, and be in the college football playoff. And it's getting close to win the national championship too. So he ain't got time to be worrying about like, all right, how much money is this kid bringing in on his NIL deal? Let me give him some snaps. Hey, man, you want some snaps? Go earn them.
And by the way, I don't disagree with anything, and I hope that that's actually what it is. But we also know.
I pray that's how it's going to be. How about that?
And I don't mean you are naive, but I think we might get to a point where that might be the new naive way of thinking. And I hope that that's not the case, but like I just see so many weird things happening already. I mean, we have multiple athletes who are Monty Bates just reclassified to be a freshman. Now, we watched Monty Bates at Vandalia Butler High School for the Top Gun Showcase. Eric Horseman and the Flying to the Hoop High School Basketball Showcase. They kick butt every year putting that on. They started a little mini showcase this past year. I'm assuming it'll be back. I haven't talked to Eric in a while, but it was a success. It was really cool coming out of the pandemic, sorry. But, as far as coming out of that where, you were allowed to have, spectators and stuff like that. So we saw Monty Bates, number one junior in the class for 22. And all of a sudden he's reclassified. So he's doing now what Quinn Ewers is doing, because he's like, well, why go to high school? Why go do these prep teams for another year when I could just go and be a red shirt or go play my year at Michigan State or play my year at Memphis for Penny Hardaway, make my NIL money, and then go to the NBA next year.
Straight to the G League.
Go straight to the G League. But you might, to be honest, you want to know what's sad? The name, image, and likeness might create more money for them than the G League. The G League might have to step their game up for some of these guys, and they probably can, and they probably will. Who knows? But the bottom line is, because it's an investment. If I could say, we got Monty Bates to come here, and we prepped him, and we got him to be a top 10 pick, and here's what he's doing now, it's more of an investment than what they're truly worth that 1 year in the G League.
And it's competition, too, for the kids. But
it gets people to watch.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I watched some G League games this year strictly to watch Jalen Green.
So, and the Summer League, by the way, which, by the way, we'll have some Summer League updates for you. Obi Toppin's been in action, Jalen Crutcher and Jalen Ibby Watson. Ibby Watson's had a couple nice plays, but a lot of Ibby Watson, a lot of Jalen Crutcher and Obi Toppin, of course.
Last year's rookies have such an unfair advantage.
Yeah.
I saw Obi drop 24, quickly had like 32.
Well, Obi had a really bad game 2 or 1, and Knicks fans were destroying him. And then he had that 24-point really good game. I can't remember if the 24 points came first or second, but he had one bad game. I think it was the second game he had a bad game, and everyone was like, he played 2 games in one day. He's, of course he's going to, but Knicks fans were just going ballistic. I honestly think this is a tryout just to get him out of there. Not because he's not good, but the whole reason he didn't play a lot last year, that same reason, was just extended for significant money, and that dude ain't going anywhere unless he gets the Gibson. Unless he gets that. I don't know if the Knicks will bring him back, but Tibbs loves his veteran players, so we'll see.
True.
Derrick Rose got some good money. My ADD's on full force today.
It's all good. Don't worry about it.
To go back to Doug Toby, sorry, Doug. He said, Quinn Ewers will be a red shirt. Possibly. I think that's what it should be. Kev, everything you said I agreed with. I just know that we're in murky times as far things were murky and dirty with the rules in place. Now that the doors are open to these kids making money over the counter versus, under the counter, right? It's just there's a lot of blurred waters now. So it's going to be interesting to see how that goes. But yes, he will most likely be redshirted. And when he says he's not a Trevor Lawrence, this goes back to our point earlier. He's young. He's not even in high school. I mean, he's technically should be in high school right now. I know he's 18, but he should be in high school right now. So there's that. And by the way, we don't know. He is Trevor Lawrence-esque as far as expectations. He's Tua Tagovailoa-esque. He's Justin Fields-esque. So we will hold him to a much stricter. Well, I will. You won't, because you think everyone's awesome human beings, whether they're good or bad at sports and blah, blah, blah. Not Kidder. You're only a good person if you're a good athlete. No. But he will be held to a higher expectation. Like CJ Stroud can come in and make mistakes, and we'll say, oh, he's first-year starter, blah, blah, blah. But with Quinn Ewers, if he comes in to make mistakes, well, Trevor Lawrence didn't look like that. Trevor Lawrence won a national championship his first year, right? Fair or foul, that's just the reality of it. You could blame Tua for that. You could blame Trevor for that. You could blame even Justin Fields for that, even though it was kind of a different situation.
And to your point about, money dictating playing time and everything like that, at this point, what's going on with college sports and college football, especially with realignment and teams leaving one conference for another conference and everything like that, we have no idea. Like, let's be real. Like, we have everything's on the table. Craziness is on the table. Madness is on the table. Reshifting is on the table. Everything's on the table. Like, I could be here saying coaches still have the power. At the end of the day, they determine who plays and who don't play. That's what we want. That's how we want it to be. That's how we expect it to be. Probably that's how, that's how it should be. But at this rate, everything is on the table. Everything. This whole thing is changing right before our eyes. And we're going to see what happens, because I truly hope, I shouldn't say believe, I hope that the coaches still have the power and to say so about what happens, because if they don't, what's the point of them even being the coaches? What's even the point? Because if they is almost, Right? Look at it might as well be baseball. It might be baseball, like with the analytics. Like, do as we say. Don't do as you feel. Do as we say.
Don't you talk about Ryan Day that way.
Never.
Don't you talk about Ryan Day that way. Okay, another Facebook reaction. Randy Bertholf on YouTube says totally. So this is about the Lane Kiffin comment. For those of you that Lane Kiffin came out and said that, he's frustrated, that a lot of his players have got the vaccine. And that he believes that, yes, he is being a little strict on the players getting the vaccine because he believes football is a lot different than just a regular job. If we don't want to get the vaccine and our job says you have to get it to come to work, you could work remotely. You can go and do your job from your room, from your living room, from your kitchen, from your back porch, from the crapper, from wherever. By the way, have you ever thought about that? How many emails have you got from people working from home on the crapper? You haven't thought about it, but you are now, just saying. So there's that, like the really like in-depth thought out emails. Like, man, that was a book. Well, just think about, I'm just saying. So with that being said, Kiffin came out and just basically said, look, it's different, than a regular job where by not being vaccinated, you impact those around you. Yes, from a health and safety standpoint, but from a money-making standpoint, by you not getting it and you increasing the risk of getting it and spreading it and games not being played and revenue being lost and money not being made, which is the same as revenue being lost. But I'm trying to add a bunch of bullet points to increase the urgency of this, right? But you see my point. I thought it was actually a very valid point on his part, and it caught a lot of people by surprise, but I don't really want to get into the arguments of that. But it was news that Lane Kiffin even brought it up. So we've talked about that. We've talked about Georgia and Ohio State in the preseason poll. Lots to get to. Also, Kirk Herbstreit joins us here in just under half hour. But let's go to the phones. 518-1410. Kev, who we got?
We got Shaw.
Shaw, you there?
Yep. How's it going, bud?
Another day in paradise. What do you got for us?
Yeah, I agree. I don't know if it's because my Wolverines have sucked for the last however many years or whatnot, but just watching college football in a whole, it's where my Georgia take came from. And I know you don't want to have an SEC conversation, but
we can have an SEC. We can have any conversation you want, Shaw. You're wrong about a lot. You might as well bring on the wrong SEC takes. No, I'm just joking. But no, look, I understand your points. Like for Georgia, I could see why we can get to the point where we say they're kind of overrated, because at the end of the day, I'm sitting here saying, like I said this about Ohio State, I don't think they're overrated, but I think you have to get to a point where we can't brag every National Recruiting Day every year, an early recruiting period, and say, man, look at the Ohio State cleaned up. Man, look at #1 recruiting class. Well, you can't keep racking those up and then only having one title per decade or sometimes none. So like Georgia's kind of that same way. Eventually, I'm not impressed with the recruiting classes. Eventually, you got to start tacking on some titles, because Ohio State recruits, they have a title this past decade. Bama recruits for well, they have multiple titles. Clemson recruits at a high level, they have multiple titles. So I think it's fair to hold Georgia to a higher standard. They have to win this year. Kev, was it you that said they're the only must-win team?
Yeah, championship or bust for Georgia.
I just see that being hard. I mean, I agree with you, Kev, that they're going to be championship or bust. That's the thought they have to have in the room. But outside looking, I don't see it that way. I don't have the faith in that quarterback that everybody else does. And I believe one of the reasons they're being overhyped is because they only have 3 true road games in the SEC. And you look at those 3 road games, it's at Vandy, at Auburn, and then at Tennessee. Obviously, those are 3 wins. And then they miss everybody else on the West. I mean, they don't have LSU, they don't have Bama, they don't have any of the top dogs on the West. So that's where I believe the overhype is coming from. And then I don't know. They are Michigan of the early 2000s to me, where yes, they recruit well, yes, they do a lot of nice things, but when it hits the fan and they actually have to beat somebody worth something, they choke and they lose every time. And that's just the way I look at it. You asked me a couple weeks ago, Kevin, how I became a Michigan fan, and I wanted to answer that while I was on the phone.
Please do.
Well, it goes back to when I was 7 years old. I was watching the game with my grandfather and my 2 uncles, and they're diehard Ohio State fans. All I said was, those are cool helmets, and I got ran out of the house. And so all I said was, well, okay, well, that'll be my favorite team. Said it in jest, not even really truly meaning anything. And then it just built from there. Then I got into school and started paying more attention and started getting razzed for being a Michigan fan, yada, yada, yada. Didn't help that Michigan was beating Ohio State every year back then. So, and then 97 happened and the rest was history after that. So that's the story, and that's how I became a Michigan fan.
That's what normally happens with kids, man. One of my best friends, he became a Duke basketball fan because his sister's boyfriend had a Duke sweatshirt on. He said he liked the lettering of the D on the Duke sweatshirt. You know, normally in this area, we see the old English style D that the Detroit Tigers, like that's the cool one that we see. So it was a new one for him. So he saw the hoodie, liked the hoodie, started watching Duke basketball, said that's my team. So that's how things happen when you're a kid. It's all good, man. I forgive you. It's all good. We you know, you can come rock with the Buckeyes. It's cool.
I can't.
Or it's
do
too
it,
late.
Man.
It's too late. It's
yeah,
never
it's
too late. It's never too late.
I mean, it's my team stinks, but I mean, I gotta live with them. I gotta rock with them.
I respect it. You two are making me sick. Laughing, stuff. Ugh. Happiness. Ugh. Anyway,
it doesn't have, like you said earlier in the show, it doesn't have to be a battle and die on the hill every single time.
Well, not till after 6, but between 3 and 6, it absolutely does. It's the rules of the show. But all right, we're getting a few weeks out. Your team, Michigan. Just curious. I mean, you've the way we follow Ohio State and everything, you follow Michigan. What's the vibe like? Is there excitement for this upcoming season? I mean, what's it like right now? How are they getting their fans geared up in excitement? If there is anything to be excited about, what is it?
I'll be perfectly honest with you. In my 40 years of life, this is the most underwhelmed, underhyped team I can remember in Michigan history. It comes off of Harbaugh going through the contract negotiations all the way through until January. It comes off the fact that they haven't beat Ohio State since Lord knows when. It comes off the fact that they haven't beat anybody worth relevant since Lord knows when. The fan base is just tired of 6-6 and 7-5. And then you compound last year with all the COVID stuff, which obviously I'm not going to get into. But because of that, they go out there and they lose to Michigan State and Tucker in his first game against Michigan at the Big House. I know the fans weren't there.
He went to my high school. He went to my high school.
Right. Shout out to Cleveland Heights.
Yes, sir.
But,
home of the Tigers.
But I mean, yeah, I agree because he's coaching for Sparty. But so you throw that on top of it with the fact of then you have the whole debate of Penn State, Michigan, yada, yada, yada. I completely disagree with everybody else. I think Michigan and Penn State are even par in a lot of aspects. But so you go to this season, they still don't have a quarterback. You have no idea who the quarterback's going to be. They have a 5-star freshman coming in.
Cade McNamara.
Cade McNamara is probably going to be the starter, but he's got one start. It was underwhelming. It was against Rutgers, and the game went to overtime. So are we really supposed to be excited about this? Then you compound the fact that they've completely flipped the coaching staff, 9 new coaches, 8 of them in positions they've never coached before. The list goes on and on and on, my friend. You start the second week of the season, you have Washington rolling into the Big House. They love to run the ball. Michigan's weakest spot on the defense is the defensive line. So anybody that can run the ball is going to beat the crap out of them running the ball. I don't know.
What's their record going to be this year?
7-5 at best.
Mm-hmm.
It may be 8-4 if they somehow pull the Washington game, but right off the rip, they lose to Ohio State, they lose at Wisconsin, they lose at Penn State, they have Indiana at home. It's no longer a guaranteed win. Maryland on the road, that's a possible loss. Michigan State game's a coin flip. It shouldn't be. Where's the wins coming from? And I don't know. The over-under through Vegas right now for playing purposes only, I mean, nothing, whatever, but it's 7.5. I'd take the under and I'd run away with it. I have no confidence trust me, I hope Harbaugh gets let go, and I hope they go look at 2 spots, either Minnesota or Iowa State. Those are the 2 guys I want.
There you
Either
go.
row the boat or bring in Campbell. I don't. Either way,
Bring in
that's who
Campbell.
that's who I'm doing.
Most overrated coach every year. I still have no clue. Every time a big job opens up, Campbell. Let me ask this nicer, so I don't get yelled at by the bosses. Had to be nice to the callers. Shaw, why do you like Campbell? Because his name gets brought up when the Buckeye job was open. His name was mentioned. His name gets mentioned every time a big job opens up, and he's as underwhelming at Iowa State as most coaches, other big coaches. Fickell at least wins. Well, he wins with less. I mean, I just don't understand the hype and the love for Campbell. I don't. I think he's the most overrated name every single year. It drives me nuts.
Did you know who Iowa State football was before him?
I don't. It doesn't matter. Who was Fickell? Look what he's doing at Cincinnati.
Fickell has more talent than everybody in his conference.
I don't think Campbell needs to step his game up.
UC was known before Fickell got there. You had D'Antonio. You got old boy from that's coaching in Notre Dame now. Yada yada yada. Iowa State was the whipping boy of the Big 12 for the longest time. They were the Rutgers of the Big 12. He's got them to the last 3 years where they've one win. Yes, they've choked in the game, but they were one win away from winning the Big 12 or going to the Big 12 championship game.
And what's that mean?
What he's done.
That's like bragging that Northwestern went to the Big 10 title game 2 of the last 3 years.
Northwestern should brag about that. That's Northwestern.
That's like bragging about me being able to touch the net in warm-up so the guy behind me is dunking.
As short as you are, you should. You should brag
nothing.
about touching the net.
It means nothing.
No,
I can't touch
you
the
touch
net.
the net. You're
I can't touch the net. Without a ladder, without a step stool, I can leap and touch the net. I'm that good. Shaw, we're out of time.
Right. All right, brother. I'll see you later.
Campbell. I don't get it. And who was Iowa State before him? Who's Iowa State now? Who's talking Iowa State other than, I guess, us?
Gotcha.
But no, I'm telling you, he's overrated. I hope Michigan gets him. Please get rid of Harbaugh. Bring in Scott Campbell. I dare you.
I don't know who Scott Campbell is, but
well, what's Campbell's name?
It's Mike Campbell.
See, don't even know who the hell he is. We'll be back.
It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine.
Hi, Tom Bodette for Motel 6, leaving the light on for the homebody, who now would rather be an anywhere but homebody after spending 12 months stuck at home with nobody but themselves. Well, Motel 6 has plenty of clean, comfortable rooms, all at a great low rate. So when you decide to visit somebody, anybody, anywhere else but your home, Motel 6 will be waiting. I'm Tom Bodette for Motel 6, and we'll leave the light on for you.
Hi, this is Eddie Sorrell, Body Shop Manager at Germain Honda of Beaver Creek. When you need a dependable body shop, we're here to help, repairing all makes and models. Our technicians have over 125 years experience. That means we can repair your vehicle quickly and efficiently. Our department is state-of-the-art with new equipment to get you back on the road quickly. We offer loaner cars during service and free estimates. Germain Honda of Beaver Creek, Route 35, just east of 675 between Xenia and Beaver Creek.
Grammy award-winning folk band Old Crow Medicine Show and guitar-picking prodigy Molly Tuttle together live. 2 nights, Friday, August 13th at PNC Pavilion and Saturday, August 14th at Rose Music Center at the Heights. Caroline, you do just fine. Tickets are on sale now at Ticketmaster.com. Don't miss Old Crow Medicine Show and Molly Tuttle live in Ohio this August.
Prescription products require an online consultation. Restrictions apply. See website for full details and important safety information.
My husband's ED was affecting our marriage. When he first started experiencing ED, it was difficult for both of us. We didn't know who to talk to about it or where to get help. HIMSS was our answer. HIMSS connected my husband with a licensed provider online. He was able to get medication to treat his ED at a fraction of the price people pay for the name brand. It was delivered to our door, and guess what? Our intimacy is back. It works.
Right now, get your first online provider's visit totally free when you go to forhims.com/joy. Yep, free. No copay, no expensive appointments, and no awkward face-to-face conversations. Just the care you need.
Thanks to HIMSS, we got our intimacy and our marriage back.
To start your free online visit, go to this exclusive address, forhims.com/joy. That's forhims.com/joy for your free online visit. FORHIMS.com/JOY.
You have empty office space to fill or home office to create. You know what you need. You know what you'd like. But you also have a pretty good idea after you've shopped around the usual places what you need and what you like might not happen. Well, then you haven't been to Charles Larrick's Warehouse Outlet. Nobody has their selection. Nobody has their discounts. And every week there's something new. If you need office furniture, Larrick's Warehouse Outlet can sell it to you for half the price and below manufacturer's selected prices. Half price and below on hundreds of items. Selection from budget to the best. Really, desks from $50 to $5,000. Filing cabinets from $25 to $500. Before you go anywhere else, do yourself a favor and come to Larrick's Warehouse Outlet. With 25,000 square feet of selection, you're not going to go anywhere else. Larrick's Warehouse Outlet at 23 McOil Avenue, Dayton. Open Monday through Friday, 9 to 6. Larrick's, continuing the tradition.
Staples Connect has everything to help you get ready for back to school with amazing prices for everything on your list. Visit your local Staples store, staplesconnect.com, and be more than ready for school. Staples.
Attention men under the age of 35. You know what really impresses the ladies? When a guy has a few drinks and later gets pulled over for buzz driving. That could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. There goes let's grab dinner and a movie. Oh, I know. You drive more carefully when you're buzzed. You've proven that hundreds of times. A woman admires that kind of confidence. And you've practiced how to speak if a cop does pull you over. Slowly, clearly, and politely like, "Good evening, officer." A woman admires that kind of foresight. And what woman doesn't find it adorable that you call it buzzed even though the law calls it drunk? You can kiss $10,000 goodbye, along with any chance of having a girlfriend. Because nothing says I'm a catch more than a guy who lives in his parents' basement and calls it my place.
Buzzed, busted, and broke. Because buzz driving is drunk driving. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
There are many ways to catch the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash on 1410 ESPN Radio, weekdays from 3 to 6 p.m. You can catch it live right here on 1410 Wing AM, or you can stream the show at wingam.com. But now we have another way that you can take in the show. You can now watch the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash live on ESPN Dayton's Facebook page. Listen, stream, watch. It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, weekdays from 3 to 6 p.m. on 1410 ESPN Radio. On Twitter, make sure to give us a follow. Search 1410 Kinner for Justin Kinner on Twitter. That's 1410 KINNER, and ESPN Dayton for the station Twitter handle.
All right, we welcome you back. Kirk Herbstreit will join us coming up here just under 15 minutes from now. We'll talk about his new book. His new book will be made available starting next week. His new book, Out of the Pocket, available next week wherever books are sold. And, of course, you could pre-order a copy now at Amazon, so make sure you go and check that out. But we'll chat with Kirk Herbstreit coming up here just under 15 minutes. We'll talk all things Buckeyes, college football. The first college football preseason rankings are out today. All the talk of the college football playoff expansion. We'll also talk about Quinn Ewers and the impact of name, image, and likeness. I'm curious, him being a former quarterback, Kev, what he believes the dynamic of a locker room is going to be like when you already have three guys in Jack Miller and C.J. Stroud, and I know I'm missing the other quarterback I'm missing. I feel bad I'm missing his name, but the bottom line is you have these three guys, Kyle McCord, Kyle McCord, Jack Miller, C.J. Stroud. You have these three cats who have been busting their tail to fight for a spot, and then out of nowhere, due to name, image, and likeness, not just over a couple $1,000 deal. We're talking about a guy that could potentially make up to seven figures, comes waltzing in with the sole purpose of, I'm here early because I couldn't make money in my state while in high school. The only and again, this may not be the only reason he's here, and probably makes sense big picture, a year to learn, a year to, but the perception is you are only here because you want to make money. Otherwise, you would still be playing high school football right now. Now, do you blame the kid? No. But again, we all know how perceptions and views are shaped, and that's kind of the perception in the locker. I'm sure they're fine. Maybe. Not everyone's going to be Tate Martell where they start tweeting out, these stupid little come and get it type comments. You know what I mean? But like at the end of the day, I'm curious Kirk Herbstreit's, thoughts and mindsets on, how is this going to impact the locker room dynamic? Maybe not so much for Ohio State, but all of college football. This is only being talked about because it's a huge program in Ohio State, but this is going to be the norm now across the board. We're seeing it. I'm excited to talk with Kirk coming up here in just a few moments.
Yeah, we would be foolish to believe that everything is going to be kumbaya and people are going to be holding hands like, oh man, glad to see you. Glad you're here. How much money you making? Awesome. Yeah. Like people act like they get along with everybody at their job, which we know isn't the case.
I can't stand Kevin.
I know.
But they're like, no, you got to work together or you're fired. I'm like, all right, fine.
But the reality of the situation is, most people that you work with, they ain't your friends. Like they're your coworkers. You work together and that's it. You're not calling them on the weekends. Hey man, let's go to this bar. Let's hang out or whatever. You're not invited to your wedding. You're not going on vacation with these people and everything like that. And for some strange reason, in athletics and in the entertainment industry, we expect people that are coworkers to be best buddies. And that just ain't the case. So is it going to be some friction in the locker room? You better believe it. Is it up to the coaching staff to make sure things don't get out of hand and everybody works towards the same goal, which is winning the Big Ten title and competing for a national championship? You dang on straight it is. And furthermore, this competition is going to bring out the best in some guys, going to bring out the worst in other guys. Some guys are going to bail and transfer. Some dudes are going to step up their game and make them a better football player. And that can only help the Buckeye football team.
It's the Justin Kinder Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine, 518-1410. Let's go to Scott. Kev, who do we got? Scott?
We got Scott.
Scott, how are you?
What's up, gentlemen?
How are you?
I'm doing great, man. I got a little Reds talk, but I want to talk about the college thing first because you're talking about that right now. This is just another one of those things that college football is going to be the wild, wild west now for a couple years until things settle down. And all the thin-skinned guys who have no self-confidence are just going to be transferring. They're going to be wearing so many different jerseys, they're going to be schizophrenic. And that's just how it's going to be. And if one little bit of film gets out of this new guy throwing some across-the-body pass that everybody else can throw, Ohio State fans will go berserk and demand that he's starter. That's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah, and to Kev's point earlier, like if the kid's good enough to start, like if he comes in and he's just that good, I'd have to assume, I would hope that you trust the program that if they're going to force the square peg in a round hole to take the gamble on him, that there's enough there to warrant it. But he's most likely going to be redshirted. But that's why I'm just curious, the power of name, image, and likeness. Yes, not just for the athlete, but for the powers that be that are forking over the money. Are there going to be certain demands when it comes to, okay, we have money for the athlete, we have money for the school too, but we also have expectations of the kid playing. And I think that's going to be a new dynamic that's going to have to get some getting used to.
For years, it's just now it's even more tangible. We can literally above the table say, oh, this is what they're getting. Before, whether tattoos or a car or under the table booster money for dinner or whatever.
We lost him.
Yeah.
All right. Scott. We'll get try to call back here coming up in hour 3 when we open up the phone lines again. We lost connection there. We will have Kirk Herbstreit coming up less than 10 minutes from now, 10:05 or 5:05. We will have Kirk Herbstreit on the show, and of course, we'll dive into his new book, Out of the Pocket. Very good book, by the way. I was able to get into it a little bit. There's a chapter in there on Centerville, so that's pretty cool. So we'll get to all of that with Kirk Herbstreit. He joins us coming up, top of the hour. Don't go anywhere.
It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash.
lesson. One of the most important is that you can't put off the inevitable. Hi, this is Mark Davis at Dayton Memorial Park Cemetery and Mausoleums. No matter how hard it is to think about, we all need a final resting place. When pre-planning with your funeral home, please remember that cemetery arrangements must also be made. Call us today at 937-890-1831 or visit our website at DaytonMemorialPark.com. And remember, Dayton Memorial Park is a beautiful place to celebrate life.
Staples is evolving to Staples Connect, a new world of possible with innovative tools for small business and remote workers and learners. Explore what's new at your local Staples store or staplesconnect.com.
Want free Reds tickets? How about a free MLB Network Reds bag? Maybe a Reds bobblehead? Here's an idea. How about we combine them all together and give you a chance to win a free WING Reds prize pack presented by Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken. Register daily at wingam.com.
Attention men under the age of 35. You know what really impresses the ladies? When a guy has a few drinks and later gets pulled over for buzzed driving. That could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. There goes let's grab dinner and a movie. Oh, I know. You drive more carefully when you're buzzed. You've proven that hundreds of times. A woman admires that kind of confidence. And you've practiced how to speak if a cop does pull you over. Slowly, clearly, and politely like, "Good evening, officer." A woman admires that kind of foresight. And what woman doesn't find it adorable that you call it buzzed even though the law calls it drunk? You can kiss $10,000 goodbye, along with any chance of having a girlfriend. Because nothing says I'm a catch more than a guy who lives in his parents' basement and calls it my place.
Buzzed, busted, and broke. Because buzz driving is drunk driving. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Excuse me. I know you have a 9 o'clock, so I'll keep this short. I'm the business suit in the back of your closet. You wore me nearly every day before your office went, quote, casual. I used to be the CEO of your closet. Now I'm just that one intern no one ever talks to. I always thought you'd circle back with me, get granular, keep me in the pipeline. But nada, nothing. Don't you remember the McKittrick presentation? You spilled coffee on me and I still looked amazing during the breakout talkback Q&A. So I think it's time for me to move on. I've got a great resume and I absolutely crush it in interviews, okay? Let's make this a clean break. Shift the paradigm. The only thing I ask is that you think outside the box here and do this. Take me to Goodwill, where I can really make a difference.
Your donations to Goodwill create new jobs, training programs, and education assistance for people in your community. To find your nearest donation center, go to goodwill.org. Donate stuff, create jobs. A message from Goodwill and the Ad Council.
WING 1410 Dayton, Dayton's ESPN Radio. We're live. We're local. Why are you gonna miss? He struck him up. We're Dayton's ESPN radio station. Now, let's send it to the WING studios for Dayton's only local sports talk show. It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine.
All right, everybody, we welcome you back. Justin Kinner, Kev Nash hanging out with you here on what is today? Tuesday, correct? Mm-hmm. Well, that's on me this week. Feels like it's flying by, but it's only Tuesday, which means we have a lot more still to get into. It's your Friday, though, so, I'm surprised. No wonder you knew what day it was. The Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine. We welcome you back here, top of the hour, 3 o'clock, the third hour, I should say. We are off and rolling. We do have Reds baseball coming up later on tonight. The Reds proved to be human. They did lose last night against Kev's Cleveland baseball team. So how about that?
Go Guardians.
So they made Cleveland look like a real baseball team. So there you go. But even the Reds have an off night every once in a while. They'll need to get it going again. Very important series that they are getting underway here tonight against the Braves. They have the Phillies right after that. But we'll get into some baseball talk coming up around the corner. So just a reminder, I can't believe. What is today? The 10th. 10 days from now, the high school football season officially kicks off, and we'll be bringing you another season of our ESPN Dayton Glazer Softwater High School Football Game of the Week. College Football Hall of Famer Keith Byers and myself will be on the call for all 10 regular season games. We cannot wait. And our very first game of the season, Week 1, Fairfield at Centerville, will be our Week 1 matchup, which I think sets up one heck of a segue into our next guest, because we have a very good former Centerville Elk, right? A great Centerville Elk, a former Buckeye, ESPN college football analyst, Kirk Herbstreit, hanging out with us here today. Kirk, welcome in, sir. How are you?
I'm good. How you guys going?
We are good. And for one, having you on we're excited about that, but we're also having young because college football is off, not too far off in the distance. We're pretty excited about that. We're excited to talk about your new book, but I do want to ask you just how you're doing as we head into this season. There's been so much talk of conference realignment with of course, Texas and Oklahoma now in the SEC. The name, image, and likeness. You have Quinn Ewers, who forgoes his senior season at high school and is now at Ohio State the year early. So much college football playoff expansion talk from 4 to potentially 12. How do you narrow it down to the biggest topics that you're focusing on right now?
Man, I don't know. You just said a lot right there. I mean, that what you just said is more change than we've seen in the last 20 years, and it's been happening over the course of the last few weeks to months. So I think everybody's a little bit rattled right now, including myself. I think we're trying to kind of get our arms around this. Seems like every turn there's something else that you were saying was the latest. You mentioned Centerville High School. You would have had to, put me asleep to pull me out of missing my senior year with my buddies. That was everything to most of us to be able to play our senior year together with friends and finally being the senior class. But it's a different day and age. I saw yours already assigned some opportunities, marketing opportunities. So, part of me gets it. And it's the way the world is evolving. And at the same time, I think it's important, especially with college football, to hold on to some of the great pageantries and history and traditions of this game. I mean, that's what makes the sport special. It's what makes the sport really what it is. And right now, I feel like we're spinning a little bit out of control, where it's all about the money, that, and all about the playoff. You're either in the playoff discussion or you're out of it. And if you're out of it, it's like you might as well not even be playing the season. And that's not real healthy for the sport, especially when you're talking about 4, 5, 6 teams that become relevant on a national level. And you're talking about over 130 teams that feel irrelevant. And that's not a good balancing act to try to create people's interest in a sport when you're strictly talking about 5 or 6 teams. So I think there's a learning curve here for all of us, and we're just trying to do the best we can. And the good thing, as you said, is we're a couple weeks away from the season finally getting started, and we can actually start talking about games instead of all the things going on around the game.
Kirk, you brought up an interesting point. We're so caught up in how the name, image, and likeness impacts college, but you talked about it yourself. I mean, how much it would have taken for you to even consider, missing your senior season of high school. Like it just wouldn't happen. So for Quinn to make that decision, it's funny what he's missing out on from a high school experience. But Kev and I were talking about this a little bit ago, and I wanted your thoughts on this. You being a former quarterback at Ohio State, what is that locker room dynamic like? Because you have Jack Miller, you have CJ Stroud, you have Kyle McCord, who have all been busting their tails to fight for a starting spot. And we don't know that Quinn Ewers is coming in to take anything from these guys. But what is that dynamic like in the locker room when you have these 3 guys who have been working so hard? And not that Quinn Ewers isn't, but he's here based on perception, he's only here a year early because he couldn't make this money while he was in the state of Texas. Does that create a weird dynamic in the locker room that not just Ryan Day, but all coaches are going to have to balance? Or is that just something that people kind of make something out of nothing? What should we look into with that situation?
No, it's real, especially how quickly players jump, with the transfer portal. Be interesting to see. Ryan Day, I think, is really good at balancing things and trying to keep each one of the guys hopeful of one day being able to become the starter. But he already had 3 pretty talented guys, and now you throw Ewers, who's probably the most significant Ohio State quarterback recruit they've had in years, and they've been able to have some pretty good ones in the last 15 years or so. So I don't know. I think how it shakes out, it feels like Stroud has the edge. If he ends up winning the job, and then Ewers is coming in, what does that do to the other 2? How quick are they willing to? They're feeling the heat in the rearview mirror with the young guy. They've got Stroud in front of them. It'll be up to Ryan Day to try to convince him that, hey, listen, hang in there with me. We're going to need you, kind of thing. Because the inclination with today's modern college quarterback and their dads is we're out of here, And so it feels like a stay tuned kind of situation, but we'll have to see how Coach Day manages the theatrics of that position, because he's, as you said, he's not the only one. He happens to be the only one maybe recruiting at the level at that position that he has. I mean, that's a lot of depth, and it's very rare to have that many guys who are capable in one locker room. You know, it used to be, I don't want to say somewhat normal, but you could at least, you've seen it. Now in 2021, it's very, very rare to see a room that has 4 guys that could go to other places and step right in and play. And that's why so many of them leave, so they can go play somewhere else instead of sitting around waiting.
Kirk, how pumped up are you to do College Game Day with fans again? How pumped up are you to call games with fans in the stadiums again? Because I know it's a totally different experience.
Man, it's everything. We did the best we could last year to try to give fans something, a sense of normalcy, you know, when they tune in to game day. And you know, it's hard though. I mean, you're essentially doing a studio show, you know, where you're back in Bristol, Connecticut. And there's not one fan out there. We're used to having thousands and thousands of fans fired up for their team, fired up for national TV, and just, you know, elbow to elbow as far as the eye can see. And to take that away was a bizarre experience. And now, man, let's just knock on wood that, you know, this Delta variant is under control. People are getting vaccination and doing everything we need to do to be able to have football the way we know it, which is with tailgating and crowds and hysteria. You know, the bands, the cheerleaders, just everybody fired up to create that pageantry that we all have come and love over the years. And I'm as we sit here right now in early to mid-August, I'm hopeful that we're still heading in that direction. And until I'm told otherwise, that's what I'm kind of looking forward to right now.
Now, Kirk, I'm a huge college football fan. I love Tuesday night action. Last year, I picked Indiana to be my sleeper team, not only in the Big Ten, but in college football in general. Now, I need your help in picking a sleeper team for this year so I can brag to everybody. Give me a couple teams that I need to be looking out for.
Well, first, I want to ask you, what made you think Indiana was coming? Because they, I mean, I think those of us who follow them knew that they're capable, but man, that was impressive. Is there anything that made you think that last year?
I knew about Michael Penix Jr. because I also followed Florida State, and when Willie Taggart was there, he was recruiting Penix Jr. real hard. So I kept my eye on Penix Jr. as he decommitted from Florida State and then went to Indiana. So I kept an eye on him, and then Philip Wap, I believe it was one of their wide receivers, was pretty good the previous year. So I rolled the dice, and I saw that they had basically last year they were returning 11 starters on defense, and I said, well, that has to be a good thing. So I just rolled the dice. And
I love it.
I came out on the good side.
There you go, man. I love it. Isn't that fun when something like that plays out? You're like, what can I say? I try to tell you guys.
Exactly. Yeah, and Kev, you were a lot. Kev, I'll give you that. You were a lot more prepared for that answer than I thought. Like when Kirk started asking that, I'm like, what if Kev doesn't have like a real reason? What if Kev was just BSing and got lucky? No, he had it down pat. Good for Kev.
Yeah, I would say, just sticking in the Big Ten, I think Wisconsin and Penn State both, you know, they were down last year. And I don't know if it was COVID, I don't know what it was, but very uncharacteristic for both those teams. I'd expect a big bounce from both Wisconsin and Penn State. They ironically open up with one another, but I think that both those teams have a chance. You know, and I don't know if they're surprised, but I think what Fickell's done at Cincinnati, I think they really built some momentum off the year that they had last year. And then even the bowl game where they played Georgia, they outplayed them the entire game. And I think created enough confidence with their quarterback coming back, Desmond Ridder, that I think they're a legitimate. I saw the coaches poll. I think they were at 10. So I don't know how much of a surprise they are. But every time when I think of Cincinnati growing up in Dayton, it was almost like they didn't really have a team. So I mean, to see where that program is right now, I think that's always a surprise that they can be a perennial top 10 kind of team. It says a lot about the job Luke Fickell's done. Iowa State, I think, will be another team. Again, I don't know how much of a surprise with Matt Campbell and what he's done, over in Ames, but I think they're pretty legit. I keep holding out hope. I think USC and UCLA have a chance. I love when some of those traditional powers, are competitive. I'm hoping that those both teams can be good. Look out for Iowa this year, another team in the Big Ten. I think they could be really dangerous. And then some of those teams you just don't know a whole lot about. You hear them, but you don't know much about them. Look out for Louisiana, not LSU, Louisiana. They open with Texas, and Texas with Sark. Everybody's excited about what Texas can be. They better be really careful with Louisiana in their opener. And Louisiana has a team that could potentially run the table. So them and UAB and Coastal Carolina would be those three teams from, some of the group of 5 teams that have a shot that maybe surprise some people.
Louisiana got Iowa State in the first game of the season last year, right?
Yeah, they did. You're exactly right. Yep. And a lot of those same players are back this year.
We have Kirk Herbstreit hanging out with us here on the Justin Kinder Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine. Out of the Pocket, Football, Fatherhood, and College Game Day Saturdays. Kirk Herbstreit has a new book that's going to be made available beginning next week wherever books are sold. Of course, you can you can order the book early right now at Amazon and some other retailers. So we'll have more information for you on that. But Kirk, I was taking a look at the rundown for this book before, and I'm always fascinated, especially, I work here in Dayton on this ESPN radio affiliate, but I'm fascinated in the world of media, just the behind the scenes stories, and fascinated by your line of work and the experiences and stories you've had. But it's beyond just that. It's your time growing up, a lot of stories about your father. There's some, stuff from your time at Centerville. Just what went into making this book and what motivated you to want to put this out? I'm really excited about this, and we had a lot of people that couldn't wait to hear you come on the show today. Just what went into deciding to put this book out, and what are you most excited about for people to read?
Well, there's a lot to it. I'm first of all, I didn't think I'd ever write a book. Gene Wojciechowski, who ended up writing the book, approached me a couple times, and the most recent was during a quarantine, and said, I'd really love to write a book with you and just kind of talk about your journey, just your life, and not just as a football player, but just you have a story that I don't know if a lot of people know about. When they see you in a suit and tie, blonde hair, blue eye guy on the far right for 25 years, they think you're kind of born on third base, and I think they'd be really interested to hear what your life is. And so I'm a very introverted, quiet guy, very private, don't really open up to very many people at all. So this was not an easy exercise for me at all. If you talk to any of my family, they'll probably read this book and learn things. That's how quiet of a guy I am. So I because it was Gene and there was a level of comfort there, I decided to do it. And, I talked a lot about my dad and being, a son and him being essentially my hero most of my life, and how at times my parents divorced when I was 8. I lived in Trotwood. My parents divorced when I was about 8. And, I went from having a perfect little Sandlot world, that movie, The Sandlot. That was kind of our lifestyle. I lived on Westbrook Village on Weybridge Drive, and man, that world got turned upside down. And so I talk about that and the pain that created, and then my parents would get remarried and get divorced again and remarried again, and so I had a lot of step brothers and dads and moms, and moved around a lot, which is a tough thing for a really shy guy to do. And so I talked just about that, how my dad got remarried and I kind of lost him being in my life as much as I wanted to. And I didn't really have resentment or hate or anger the way some people have with divorce. It was more kind of an emptiness, kind of a sadness that you don't have. So he and I were friendly all the way throughout his entire life. I just needed more of that relationship. So I talk about that. I talk about being a dad myself of 4 boys and some of the trials and tribulations of going through that. So it's not your standard football book by a football guy. There's a little bit more to it. I should say a lot more to it as far as just me as a person and just opening up and sharing my story and eventually finally getting to Centerville middle of my 8th grade year and finally got to a school district where I could settle in and be in one place for my entire high school there at Centerville. I'm very, very fortunate to play for a legendary high school coach, Bob Gregg, and he changed my life for the better, honestly. And pretty much anybody who played for him, he changed their life for the better. So that you have that, and then we talk about being an athlete at Ohio State, and in kind of a very self-deprecating way, I talk about my career, and I'm not pointing fingers. I point the finger at myself as much as anything. And then get into my broadcasting and all the way 25 years of doing that. And as you guys know, I'm a little bit of an anomaly in the industry. And usually when you get to the level of where I am as a broadcaster on a national level, you win a Heisman Trophy, you you're an All-American. You won a national championship. You won Super Bowls. I mean, you look at Tony Romo, Aikman, Collinsworth, all these guys, and yet here I am. I mean, I was a solid player, but I wasn't a superstar. So I always get the question, how in the world did you get to that spot, where you've been I call national championships every year, Rose Bowls every year. I mean, I'm just very fortunate to be in a position that I'm in. I've been there for a long time. So I get a lot of questions about how in the world did you get there? So talk about that journey in the book, and talk a lot about Lee Corso and College Game Day and just some of the great stories and experiences that I've had. And hopefully it'll resonate with people. That's what, there are people out there. If you would have known me when I was in middle school and high school, where I used to tell the teacher I'll pass on the oral report, like I'll take a 0, to now, I've been speaking in front of millions of people for the last 25 years. It just shows you how you change and evolve. And if you're a parent of a really shy son or daughter, I'm a great example of how things can change. I would have never guessed a million years in high school that I'd be doing what I do for a living. So yeah, there are a lot of different layers to it. And like I said, I hope people that do read it, I hope they can relate to it in some way.
All right, Kirk Herbstreit, awesome enough to give us some time today. Kirk, send us out with this. I appreciate the time you've given us. Chapter 3. It's really intriguing to me. It's Elk Pride and the Art of the Puke. Can you elaborate a bit on Elk Pride and the Art of the Puke? Because that sounds like a college experience, right? Like that.
Bob Gregg was a former Marine and ahead of his time, man. And we used to, before I think a lot of people do it now, but we used to work out at 5:30 in the morning when it was almost still dark out, and we would get there over the summer in June and July, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And Wednesdays was a circuit day, and a old school Nautilus machine with the doors shut. And when they shut those doors, whistles are blowing. It was basically like being at Paris Island, and condensation coming down off the walls, and guys are blacking out and getting dizzy. And today you'd probably get in trouble if you ran that kind of deal. But back then, it was our edge. It was our secret sauce to beating teams that were much more talented than us. But we were a Marine Corps. I mean, we just outworked everybody, and we were robots because of some of those experiences. The guys would puke all over, the place, and trash cans and on each other, and it was a mess. But it was something that if we didn't do that, we would have probably lost a lot of games. So we all bought in, and we were, Coach Gregg, he was the kind of guy, and you hear these stories, but put your helmet on and run through that wall. You'd be like, helmet, put it on, run through the wall. I mean, we were kind of that kind of dedication. So he was the best, man.
All right. Well, good stuff. And again, the name of that chapter, Elk Pride and the Art of the Puke. This book, I cannot wait to get my hands on it. You can get your hands on it beginning next week, but you can get your early copies ordered now at Amazon and some other retailers. And Kirk will tweet out that link coming up here following this interview. Kirk Herbstreit, ESPN college football analyst, former Centerville Elk, former Buckeye, and author of his new book, Out of the Pocket, available next week wherever books are sold. Kirk, thank you so much. We have 85 million questions we didn't even get to, but that's all right because you nailed it as always. So thank you so much. We appreciate your time.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
All right, there he is, Kirk Herbstreit. Again, if you missed that interview, we will have it up immediately following the show. Make sure you subscribe and download the Justin Kinner Show podcast in your Apple iTunes and Google Play Store. You can also catch it on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to ESPN Dayton's YouTube channel. Just search ESPN Dayton on YouTube. Subscribe. You can watch the show weekdays from 3 to 6 p.m. You can also rewatch old shows in their entirety, as well as select segments and all interviews like the one we just did there with Kirk Herbstreit. Good stuff. We'll rebound on top of that interview. We'll kind of expand on that just a little bit on the other side, some key takeaways. Love hearing his stories about his time at Centerville. And he's right. There's so many things growing up that, even me at 31 years old, there's ways that I've experienced how coaches used to operate that would not be tolerated now. It's unfortunate, but that's just the reality of it. So, but good stuff from Kirk Herbstreit. We'll have that interview up. A lot of interesting things there. Again, just some of the surprise teams to kind of keep an eye on out that he talked about. And then I loved his takes on the Quinn Ewers thing. Like he's not against these kids having a chance to make money, but it is going to create a lot of weird dynamics that we're not accustomed to seeing as fans and that coaches and players are having to adjust to as well. We'll be back in a moment. It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine.
is the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine.
ESPN 1410 Wing AM weather.
This afternoon will be partly cloudy with a chance of showers and thunderstorms, a high near 92. Tonight will be partly cloudy and humid, a low around 75. And tomorrow will be partly cloudy with a chance of showers and thunderstorms, a high near 92. I'm Pete Spivak for 1410 ESPN Radio.
Weather is brought to you by Cullet Seal Coating, protecting the asphalt surfaces at your home, office, or commercial property. Introducing infrared patching, a new technology for your property. This service and more at culletsealcoating.com.
For the ones who know that a little late is always too late, and that the clock doesn't stop just because you're missing a part. Grainger offers supplies and solutions for every industry, and our Keep Stock inventory management solutions help ensure you have the right stuff in the right place at exactly the right time. Visit Grainger.com/keepstock to learn more. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
We call him Willy Wonka. He's a chocolate lab. His belly itched, and he would actually lay in the grass and scoot across it to scratch. And Sheba, his sister, she scratched at her ears real bad, and she shook her head so much, she wound up with cauliflower ears.
DINOVITE.com. Dinovite is nutrition.
When we first got the Dinovite, they cleaned the bowls up real good. Her ears, they're a whole lot better. Wonka, his belly, it's all really cleaned up. He flops over and lays on his back and just kicks his legs, and I call it his happy dance. They look good and even smell good in between baths. You should give your dogs Dinovite before something happens. And that's kind of like preventative maintenance.
Dinovite for life.
It makes them healthier and happier.
You won't believe how happy your dog will be.
And your dogs will love it just like mine do.
DINOVITE.com.
Greatness. It's not born of coincidence. It's not a product of luck. It's forged through dedication, drills, and the acquisition of new skills. Wanting won't get you there, but sweat equity just might.
Timothy's Bar and Grill on Brown Street wants to wish the Dayton Flyers Red Scare the best of luck in their journey through the basketball tournament. Wear red, be loud, go Flyers!
With Amdro, you can enjoy your backyard like never before. Our round-the-clock pest protection gives you the peace of mind to enjoy your great outdoors without a care in the world. Okay, we can't defend you against the splash zone. But when it comes to ants and other pests, we've got you covered 24/7. Find Amdro in the insecticide aisle at your nearest retailer.
Do you struggle with occasional nerve aches, weakness, or discomfort in your hands or feet? Try Nervive Nerve Relief from the world's #1 selling nerve care company. Nervive contains alpha-lipoic acid to relieve nerve aches, weakness, and discomfort, and B-complex vitamins to support healthy nerve function as you age. Live your life with less nerve discomfort with Nervive Nerve Relief. Learn more at nervivehealth.com.
You have empty office space to fill or home office to create. You know what you need. You know what you'd like. But you also have a pretty good idea after you've shopped around the usual places what you need and what you like might not happen. Well, then you haven't been to Charles Larrick's Warehouse Outlet. Nobody has their selection. Nobody has their discounts. And every week there's something new. If you need office furniture, Larrick's Warehouse Outlet can sell it to you for half the price and below manufacturer's selected prices. Half price and below on hundreds of items. Selection from budget to the best. Really, desks from $50 to $5,000. Filing cabinets from $25 to $500. Before you go anywhere else, do yourself a favor and come to Larrick's Warehouse Outlet. With 25,000 square feet of selection, you're not going to go anywhere else. Larrick's Warehouse Outlet at 23 McOil Avenue, Dayton. Open Monday through Friday, 9 to 6. Larrick's, continuing the tradition.
Hello,
it's John Kozik, founder and president of TurboTrack Realty, and I buy houses as is, fast for cash. Call me today for an all-cash offer on any of your properties, and we can close within days at 614-362-2000, 362-2000. Do you own a property that's outdated and needs thousands of dollars in repairs? Great, I'll buy it. I'm a private real estate investor who can solve your real estate problems fast for cash. Do you want to sell and just be done with it? Okay, great. I buy vacant properties, boarded up houses, pre-foreclosures, and inherited properties. I also buy apartment buildings, rental portfolios, divorce homes. I even buy my tenant won't pay me the rent houses. I look forward to solving your real estate problems today. Give me a call for an all-cash offer at 614-362-2000, 614-362-2000.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, inventor of My Pillow, here to tell you about my Giza Dream bed sheets. I made sure that they would be everything you'd ever want in a sheet set. I started with the world's finest cotton called Giza. It's only grown in a region where the Sahara Desert, the Nile River, and the Mediterranean Sea all meet. The long staple cotton makes my Giza Dream sheets ultra soft and durable. They come with extra wide pillowcases to fit over any pillow and extra deep pockets to fit over any mattress. Not only that, they come with my 60-day money-back guarantee and a 10-year warranty. And now you can get the best sheets ever for the best price ever. When you buy one of my Giza Dream bed sheet sets, you'll get another one absolutely free. I personally guarantee that they'll be the most comfortable sheets you'll ever own.
Go to mypillow.com and click on the radio listener square and use promo code SKY, S-K-Y, for this amazing special, or call 800-635-1825 and use promo code SKY.
Let freedom ring. Set your alarm and get to Wendy's this Friday and Saturday morning for a free sausage or bacon, egg, and Swiss croissant. No purchase necessary. Available during breakfast hours.
He's a former Buckeyes great and now a college football Hall of Famer. And don't forget about his 13 years of NFL experience playing for the Eagles, Dolphins, Jets, and the New England Patriots. He's Dayton's own Keith Byers. Hang out with him every Monday at noon on the Keith Byers Show, presented by Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken. Whether you're at home, at work, or in your car, tune in to ESPN 1410 Wing AM or stream us live at wingam.com.
We just had Kirk Herbstreit on last part of the show, and he brought up a point that I hadn't even thought about. We were so caught up in going to college to make money, name, image, and likeness and all that. But Kirk brought up a good point. Like, think back to your high school days. Like, I mean, Kirk brought up the fact that, he was like, man, it would take a ton. Like, he couldn't even imagine choosing to skip your senior year of high school. In 10 days, we will be bringing you the ESPN Dayton Glacier Softwater High School Football Game of the Week. Yes, it's a plug, so there you go. But we will open up with Centerville welcoming in Fairfield. But, I love high school football. I mean, who doesn't? I mean, high school football, high school athletics in general. But, I can't, think of all the seniors this year. Last year, we talked about all those seniors who were devastated to, maybe not even have a season at all because of COVID, or to play in front of near empty stadiums all season because of COVID. And then you have a guy like Quinn Ewers who is just, screw it. Right? I'd never even thought of it like that. And that's really not what Kirk Herbstreit said necessarily, but what he said was he couldn't imagine skipping his senior season at Centerville back in the day to go chase money at all. But then again, I'm not saying, well, Kirk, what do you know? You weren't offered that money. We don't know. We have no idea how we would react until we had a legitimate offer to go chase some dollars.
Right.
And you expect a 17, 18-year-old kid with money dangled in front. But at the same time, I can relate to what Kirk says when he says, I can't imagine skipping my senior season of football to go chase money, to go to the college ranks. But it was a different time back when he played. But that's interesting to me. And now, I've always thought, too, we've already been fringing on that where athletes are forgoing, like the prep teams. I like the concept of the prep teams make a lot of sense. You're getting a full roster put together of guys that can all go on to play collegiately. You're all like kind of, you're a team on and off the court from that perspective, yes, but you're getting a lot of one-on-one attention for classes. You're doing online classes. You're getting your education. It could sometimes be a much safer environment for some who are not coming up in good backgrounds and everything. So I get that. But at the same time, is that prep experience the same? Like, is Monty Bates will never understand what it's like to play in front of your hometown.
Right.
Like, there is something to be said about that. Like these kids, like Friday Night Lights coming up, whether they're playing Thursday, Friday, don't matter. Like Centerville, Wayne, and I'm not just throwing out GWAC schools, Trotwood, Dayton Public Schools, it doesn't matter. Dayton Public Schools, more fans need to attend those games. I'll never forget how disappointed I was. I did a Dunbar game a few years ago. I felt bad for those kids that had nobody there in the stands. I was just paying. It wasn't a COVID season. It looked like a COVID season time. Like these kids, like the opportunity to play in front of a packed house. Keith shared all the time how crazy Welcome Stadium used to be for these games. Same thing for basketball at the same time. Like he said, it was unlike anything. It's not the same today. The atmosphere is not even close to being the same. We're fortunate when we get to call games like at Fairmont, Centerville, Wayne, Trotwood, anywhere that there's a lot of fans. It's Springfield. It's awesome. Well, we can't broadcast at Springfield, but bottom line is their fans are awesome. Their team is awesome. Their coach is awesome. But at the end of the day, it's one of those situations where these kids is it worth it to them? Is this all that money that's waiting for them in name, image, and likeness? Is it worth giving up these experiences? But for some who've never had it, they don't know what they're missing. Like sometimes if you've never experienced something, you don't know that you're not experiencing it, if that makes sense. I don't know. I just find that strange, but it's one different way to look at it that I hadn't looked at it before. Kirk Herbstreit just mentioning that on the show.
Yeah, it's all about what you value. Do you value that? Do you value that Friday Night Lights experience? Do you value that student body experience? Do you value hanging out after the game? Do you value going to prom? Do you value, just hanging in the parking lot with your buddies after the game, after a big victory? Do you value that, or do you value the monetary thing? For me, I get what everybody's saying about it, and I'm with you. I would imagine and I would hope that if I was that supremely talented when I was in high school, that I was getting Division I offers and everything like that, that I would say, I'm going to stick it out with my guys. We're going to try to win state, yada, 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 everything like that. I say that as a grown man, but I don't know how I would react if I was 17, 18 years old from a company saying like, hey, we're going to pay you X amount of dollars if you enroll at a school that you're going to be going to for free anyway. And here's some money on top of it to, for your pockets, for your mom pockets, for your brother's pockets. Like, I don't know how I would react to that. Also, I think that people look at what's going on with college sports, and especially with football and basketball, and they look at it with and I want to say disdain, but a look of like, come on, really? Is that what we're doing? But this has been going on in the world of tennis for forever. Like, look at like Coco Gauff. She was playing in major tournaments at 15 years old. She don't go to a regular high school. She goes to an academy. And that's the same thing that happens overseas. Like, we talk about Luka, and Luka just signed this crazy Supermax contract. He's been a professional basketball player since he was 15 years old. So it's just that mindset of we're adapting to how things are done in other sports, and now it's invading the sport that everybody loves. It's invading football. It's invading basketball. But the sport like tennis that we only really watch the majors, we really don't pay it that much of attention. When it happens in those sports, it's like, all right, well, that's just how it is in that sport. But now it's invading the main sport that we watch, and we're so traditionalized on how we view sports and how things should go. Like I got talked about, like, well, the coach should have the final say so about who gets playing time. Like, that's the traditional way of viewing things. The traditional way of viewing things is you go, you play freshman, and if you're freshman football, and if you're good enough, you get some snaps on JV, and then as a sophomore, you play JV, and you get some snaps on the varsity, and then as a junior and a senior, you play on the Friday nights on the big stage and everything like that. And if you're fortunate enough, you go to play college football and you take those baby steps. Well, those baby steps are being skipped, and a lot of them are being skipped by supremely talented people. It isn't like every Joe Blow out there is foregoing their senior year to go to their college choice. Like, it's a very select few. Like, the Monty Bateses are far and few between. We think there's a ton of them because they're always plastered on our TV screen. But think about it. You call high school basketball games. How many kids are truly playing high school basketball? A lot of them dudes ain't going D1. A lot of these dudes ain't playing basketball after their senior year is done. And that's the same thing for football. These guys are far and few between. So I try not to get bent out of shape about it. It's very odd. And older I get, I try not to lose sight of how I was when I was a kid and how I would approach these things if I was a kid, and how would I approach these things if I was a parent. Because it's like Herbstreit said, it's a different world, and we all have to adjust and readjust our thought process. And I don't want these kids to be bashed for these decisions that they're making, because it's an adjustment for everybody.
Well, I don't know why we have to adjust our thought process. Like, we could think whatever the hell we want, because at the end of the day, we all have our own experiences with high school sports growing up that these kids are missing out on. And really everyone that, and I didn't mean to, like, I'm against these kids doing it, I guess, but my point is I guess it's just a situation where if Quinn Ewers is as good as he said, he's going to go make millions in the NFL regardless, one way or another, whether he gets this name, image, and likeness money or not. If he's as good as he says, he will be drafted just like Trevor Lawrence was, just like Tua was, just like Justin Fields was. If he's who we expect him to be, he'll be fine. So you basically, whatever money he makes in name, image, and likeness in this up year, not for the total year, for this upcoming season, whatever. I mean, it had to be a significant amount of money. Again, when you're in high school, what I mean, right. I remember my graduation parties getting a couple grand. I thought that was like the most money in the world, and now I'm just like, well, when you get that for a paycheck, it's gone in 2 minutes. So, so again, a lot of money to a high schooler, and sometimes not even just a high schooler, but the family of the high schooler. Right. In that current situation. But at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, is it worth giving up that experience?
Right.
And it's an experience that we're talking about here. And by the way, those countries that those kids are put in those little sports factories from the time they're little, I don't think that that's mentally healthy. When I talk about mental health, there's a reason that a lot of these athletes are the way they are when they get to this point. They're mentally drained. Burnout. They don't know how to interact with people and everything like that. And again, I'm not talking badly about them, but I don't think it's mentally healthy to put kids in sports factories from the time that they're little to the point to where they don't even know how to interact with people. I think there is a lot of great things that come with, team athletics or just sports in general. But like when you talk about tennis, little different, more individualized. I mean, there's not thousands of people lining up every Thursday, Friday, or Saturday to go watch a tennis match or what have you. So, and the same parents that would have watched them in a regular high school match are watching them in this sports. I don't even know what they're called. Sports factories is what I keep being dramatic with. At the end of the day, you're right. Not going to have a hot take on a small, tiny percentage of these athletes doing this. But again, it's interesting to me.
Oh, it definitely is.
Because for every recruiting class, there's a Quinn Ewers.
Yeah.
Maybe every other recruiting class, there's an Monty Bates. Like every year, there's big athletes. But you're right. This has been slowly gravitating towards more of a professionalism from a much younger age. That's why what's the other league for high schoolers now? As a high school, I mean, it's the prep teams, yes, but was it the NBA? Who started it? Dwayne Wade and
Melo and Dwayne Wade. They have some thing in New York.
So it's the equivalent to what you were talking about for the tennis athletes and others who your whole purpose from the time you're in middle school, high school is to be a part of this league and develop to be a pro, which sounds cool and an investment. But if you're good enough, whether you play at a small, tiny school like in Van Wert, Ohio, where I'm from, or if you go to Centerville, look at all the D1 talent on Centerville. Playing at Centerville is not keeping these kids from getting the offers. Right. So I've never bought into this idea that you have to play on these prep teams to get noticed. You have to play here. In a day and age where there's Twitter and social media and Facebook and everything, I just have a hard time believing that when these guys go out in the sales pitch of, you have to come here, we'll get you to college. Okay, well, I'm pretty sure Mr. Cups is doing a pretty decent job at Centerville right now. I'm pretty sure you look at the job that Coach Martindale, Wayne, and everyone else is doing. They're doing a pretty good job. So that's all. I don't think there's only to pitch to guys and family and gals that you have to come play here because we will get you to college. I just don't believe in that. I don't like that idea, that mindset.
I know a lot of the pitches are for, the prep teams and everything like that. Well, you'll be practicing against light competition. You won't be the big fish in a small pond. So that whole iron sharpens iron type of theory, like, hey man, you're going to be playing basketball. Like a good buddy of mine, he always played 2 grades up. We were in the same grade, but he was way better than everybody in our grade. So I
played on the freshman team 3 years in a row.
So he would in 7th grade, he was playing with the 9th grade team. because he was that good, and he got better, and he eventually played Division I college basketball and everything like that. So like, I think it's like that theory and that thought process that goes into it. Like, hey man, we're going to put you in the best environment to hone your skills to get you better. And you playing Kev in the backyard, that ain't gonna make you no better. You've been doing the same crossover on Kev for the last 5 years. That crossover ain't gonna work on Billy from Akron or wherever. You know what I mean? So I think it's like that thought process that goes into getting kids into these prep schools and everything like that. Like I said, it's weird. I mean, like I talked about before, when Centerville won the state championship, my best friend, his son, was on the team and everything like that. And to see the joy on his face and his teammates' face, and not only that, the student bodies, the parents and everything like that, they put a lot of work into that. And you are right. The kids that, forego their senior year, that opportunity, that experience. I mean, we can even go back to, the guys that early enroll for football. I remember when Maurice Corrett was the first guy to early enroll, like at Ohio State, like in January, was part of the spring training programs and everything like that, and got bigger, faster, stronger. Ohio State ended up winning the national championship as his freshman year. But like, you look back at those experiences that, you miss out on personally, and you got to weigh them out. Like, all right, me missing hanging out with my buddies after school, me missing prom, me missing spring dance, me missing graduation to all chase this dream. Is it all going to be worth it in the end? And that's one thing that these families, not just the student athlete, but the mother, the father, as a family, they have to make that decision, what's best for them. And hopefully everything works out for Quinn Ewers and he stars for the Buckeyes and goes on to the NFL and is happy with the decision he made.
Yeah. And last thing on this, and my whole point was, so he leaves high school early, goes to college early. He'll get to the NFL and everyone will say, see, look how much more successful he was because of that. If this dude's what as advertised, he will get to the NFL the same way that Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence and every other great quarterback in recent history has got there, because they're good enough. So the only difference between if Quinn Ewers makes it to the NFL with this decision versus Justin Fields and others is you just, you made money. It was just money. You made money earlier, or you made money a legal way, I guess. I don't know how you want to look at it. But at the end of the day, Quinn Ewers is not going to get to the NFL because he enrolled a year early at Ohio State. That's why I guess my point is when we sit here and say, well, you got to do what's best for you, the family has to do what's best for him and the kid. If money is what's best for you, the kid, then fine. But say that. Don't do this whole, we're doing this because it's going to set him up to get to the NFL. What? Tua Tagovailoa did it. He didn't enroll early to go to the NFL. Trevor Lawrence didn't need to enroll early. I get tired of the BS reasons that we hear for all these things. Just say, it's a chance to make money, because you would do it for money. I would do it for money. I'm not judging them for doing it for money. What I get tired of is when we do this whole stupid thing, it's going to help him prepare him for the NFL, as if waiting one more year, getting another year of high school football, and then going to Ohio State a year from now is all of a sudden going to set him back 3 years of prep for the NFL. Give me a break.
I know I read an article with his parents was saying, well, yeah, it's about the money, but it's also about what you said about getting them ready for the NFL earlier. It's like, but also like, Texas needs to catch up with the rest of the country on allowing, the high schoolers to make money. If the NCAA is going to do it, then the high schoolers should do it too. And especially in the state of Texas, where Texas rules and everything, football rules, like they need to do that. And hopefully him leaving can open the door for Texas to change its rules.
So now he's a martyr.
Yeah, that's what his old man said in the article I read. That's all I can say. So, if it goes that way, maybe he'll go down in history, and every high school athlete that gets a little check can thank Quinn Ewers.
Ugh.
So you're not happy about that either, even though he kept it real.
But that's BS. It's BS.
Which one is
because
BS?
I'm doing this for the little people. I'm doing this for you.
Because
I'm doing this for the future. When they do those stupid, the future generation. God.
Because his dad was like, we don't need the money, because I guess apparently the family has money, so we don't need the money.
Yeah, but if I'm Quinn, I'm like, Mom, Dad, shut up. You have money. I don't have money. Now I have money.
Gladly
just be
take
real. It. Just be real. That's my big thing. And I talk about this with masks and vaccines all the time. There's only one reason. There's only one valid reason for not getting the vaccine. One valid reason. Just don't want to. Okay. Don't do the bull crap thing of, Oh, don't ask me that. It's personal. So you didn't get it. Okay, we got it. Thank you for playing along. Like, the only valid thing for enrolling early, don't say it's for the NFL. If you're good enough, you're getting to the NFL anyways. You're not going to not make it to the NFL because you didn't enroll a year early. Stop trying to talk to us like we're stupid. We're not stupid. Some people are. Not all of us are. I'm not stupid. Don't feed me that. Just say, I want the money. You can't argue with someone on that. If you want the money, great. Awesome. Super. I would do the same thing. I'm not judging you for pursuing the money. I'm judging you for trying to do this. Oh, man. I'm the face of college, or I'm the face of high school athletes making money in the state of Texas. Now we got to stand up for what's not everything has to be a stand on the podium and let's make a statement. Like, collect your damn money and go to the NFL, make more money. Not everything has to be, oh man, he's the role model. Besides, someone with a mullet could be a role model, right? Or so we've been told. Can't play quarterback, at least. We will find out. We will find out if that individual is going to keep it 100 when it comes to Quinn Ewers. This individual was adamantly against Trevor Lawrence having long hair and being a quarterback, saying, oh, you can't have long hair and be a quarterback. Just like that, too, by the way. You can't have long hair and be a quarterback. But I'm curious, if you're a Buckeye and have long hair, if it's okay to have long hair and be a quarterback. I was doing good. So you're leaving me alone for a week.
Like I told that individual, either you can play or you can't. I don't care what your hair looks like. You could be bald, it could be purple, it could be blue. I don't care. Can you play ball? And that's the only thing that should matter.
Shaw says there's plenty of good reasons not to get the vaccine. Shaw, you're not smart enough to know more than one reason why not to get the vaccine other than you just don't want to. Just say you don't want to, because any other excuse you have is BS. It's crap. There's no other excuse to not get it. There's none.
Should I tell everybody the good news or the bad news?
What's the good news?
Well, the good news is I'm going to be on vacation the rest of the week. The bad news is I'm not going to be back on the show until Wednesday. So Kenner is fired up. We got a lot of Bengals. Well, y'all got a lot of Bengals conversations to have next week. Probably even get into some LeBron, Michael Jordan debates without me. So
no need to debate. It's not even a debate. It's not even a debate. But all I ask people, stop doing this dramatic thing. Just stick to your guns. I just don't want it. It's as simple as that. Because Google MD or whatever it is that you research on the crapper, those aren't good enough reasons. I saw a meme the other day that said actual real scientists doing research on this, and then it says you doing research on this, and it's some hillbilly sitting on a toilet on his phone. That's what some of you sound like. We'll be back. It's the Justin Kinder Show with Kev Nash. Don't go anywhere.
It's the Justin Kinder Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine.
O'Reilly. Syntec is back and better than ever at O'Reilly Auto Parts. Syntec is a premium full synthetic motor oil at an affordable price. Right now, get 5 quarts of Syntec full synthetic and a Wix filter for just $31.99. Plus, earn double O Rewards points. Minimize friction, heat, and wear on your engine with Syntec full synthetic.